Okay, Chair, we're on.
Good morning, councillors, officers, members of the public and press. Welcome to today's Planning Committee, which is a remote meeting being streamed online and is also being recorded. I'll hand over to Joe Stubbs in Democratic Services, who's going to take the roll call, please.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Planning Committee. I'll start the meeting by way of a roll call. If members could confirm that they have all the paperwork and they can see and hear everyone in the meeting. I'll start with Councillor Stephen Akers-Belcher.
Yes to all.
Thank you. Councillor James Brewer.
Yes to everything.
Councillor Paddy Brown.
Yes to all.
Councillor Bob Buchan.
Yes to all.
Councillor Tim Fleming.
Yes to all.
Councillor Marjorie James.
Yes, I have the papers, I can see everyone, and I believe I have everything that I need.
Thank you. Councillor Jim Lindridge.
I can see, I can hear, I've got the papers, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Brenda Loynes.
I can see everything and hear everything, and I have all the papers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carl Richardson.
Yes, I've got everything, thank you.
Councillor Cameron Stokel.
Yes to all, thanks.
And Councillor Mike Young.
Yes to all.
Thank you. Just to advise members that if we need to take any votes today, they'll be done through a recorded vote.
Joe, can I just ask, are there any other members on the call today?
Apologies, Chair. Do we have any other members, councillors on the call that I haven't mentioned? Yeah, we have Councillor Tony Richardson on the call, Chair.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Joe. Okay, so that's dealt with. Apologies for absence. Declarations of it. Sorry. I think I'm getting some feedback here, which is a bit irritating. So number 2, receive declarations of interest. I've got a non-pecuniary prejudicial interest in items 5 and 6, which are now 1 and 2 on the agenda. So I'll leave the meeting at that point. Councillor Tim Fleming will take the chair for the first 2 items, which I repeat are items 5 and 6 on the agenda. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor Stephen Akers-Belcher.
Yes, Chair, just to mention that I'm aware of the resident in 32 Chaucer Avenue through my attendance at Residents Association meetings, but I have not got a prejudicial or otherwise view on this.
Perfect, thank you. Any other? Councillor Loynes?
Yes, I have. I know the people out of 19 Cropston only because of going to, like Stephen said, Residents Association meetings. I thought
thanks.
I'd
thanks, Councillor Loynes. Lovely, thank you. Councillor James?
Thank you, Chair. I would have the same interest in Chaucer Avenue as declared by Councillor Akers-Belcher.
That's great. Thanks, Councillor James. Any other declarations of interest? No. Okay. Item 3, minutes of the meeting. 3.1. Can we confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of October? Is there any dissent or any questions or any points? No. We'll accept them then, please. Item 3.2, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of November. Any dissent, questions or points? Okay, we'll accept them as well. Thank you very much. Item 4 and 4.1 plan applications. At this point, I need to hand over to Councillor Tim Fleming, who is going to take these first 2 applications, which are applications 5 and 6, and I will leave the call now.
All right. Right. I'm taking over for the next 2 items on the agenda. And the first one, item 1, I'm handing over to the officer to go through the details.
Thank you, Chair. Ryan Cowley, Senior Planning Officer, taking this application. The item begins on page 37 of the PowerPoint and your handout. The site relates to an area of land within the curtilage of Meadowcroft, Elwick Road, Hartlepool, in the northwest of the estate. The host property is a Grade 2 listed building located within the Park Conservation Area, both of which are designated heritage assets. Planning permission is sought for the erection of a 2-storey detached dwelling house with associated hard and soft landscaping and works to existing boundary treatments. Proposal is set out in full within the committee report. The proposed layout of the site shows the proposed dwelling in the centre with a double driveway to the south, utilising the existing access. Existing boundary walls are largely to be retained, with new walls created on parts of the eastern boundary. Hard and soft landscaping is indicatively shown on the plan here. The next slide shows the elevations of the proposed dwelling. The dwelling is largely contemporary in design, finished in a smooth white render. This slide shows the ground and first floor plans of the proposed dwelling, with ground floor living space and 4 bedrooms at first floor. The existing site access can be seen here on this slide. And the slide here shows the existing boundary walls encompassing the site. The relationship between the proposed dwelling and the existing boundary walls is now shown here. Photo 1 is a view towards the site from the north, looking across Elwick Road. The adjacent junction on Elwick Road can be seen to the right. Photo 2 is looking more directly towards the site across Elwick Road. The listed building at Meadowcroft can be seen in the background above the existing boundary wall. Photo 3 shows the existing western boundary wall with the Elwick Road junction to the left. Photo 4 is the view directly towards the site from the west, including the existing access and gates on the right-hand side. This photo again shows the existing western boundary wall and gates with Meadowcroft. Photo 6 is a view from inside the site on the opposite side of the existing access gates, looking south. Photo 7 is again from inside the site, looking northwest towards the existing boundary wall. As you can see here, the site has been cleared. Photo 8 is looking north across the site, with Elwick Road and Ward Jackson Park beyond. And the final photo here shows the eastern boundary of the site, with Meadowcroft and Meadowside in the background beyond. The relevant planning history and the full site context is set out within the committee report. The application has been referred to the planning committee at the request of a local ward councillor, in line with the council scheme of delegation. The application has been advertised by neighbour letters, site notice and a press notice. To date, 1 objection has been received from a neighbour with concerns including the impact on heritage assets, the character of the area and highway safety. Responses from technical consultees are detailed within the committee report. These include objections from the council's heritage and countryside manager, landscape architect, planning policy section and Hartlepool Civic Society. The main planning considerations are identified within the report. The application site is within the setting of Meadowcroft and Meadowside, a Grade 2 listed building that is located in the Park Conservation Area, both of which are designated heritage assets. Meadowcroft is Grade 2 listed and therefore considered nationally important. The significance of the listed building lies in part due to the setting provided by its generous grounds. The law requires that attention is paid to preserving the setting of listed building, and the council's local plan states that the council will ensure harm is not caused through inappropriate development within the setting of the listed building. The Meadowcroft estate contributes to the significance of the conservation area in part due to its generous grounds, and a particular concern in the conservation area is the loss of gardens and open spaces. The conservation area is considered to be at risk due to inappropriate development and development within the setting of buildings. The proposal would again result in permanent loss of one of the few original remaining garden areas, and it is considered would have a detrimental impact on both the setting of the listed building and the character of the conservation area. In view of this, and for the reasons set out in the report, it is considered that the proposals would cause harm to the significance of the park conservation area and the listed building at Meadowcroft, and in turn the visual amenity of the site and the character of the area. No evidence of any public benefit to outweigh this harm has been provided. In respect of all other relevant material planning considerations, it is considered that the application would otherwise be acceptable subject to appropriate planning conditions as identified. In summary, the proposal is contrary to the identified local plan policies and those of the NPPF. The proposal is recommended for refusal for the reasons detailed in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thanks very much for your report. Does any members of the committee wish to ask any questions of the officer?
Tim, you're on mute.
Yeah,
I'm on mute,
Yeah.
Councillor Lyons, can you ask your question?
Thank you. Yes. I noticed within the report it says the objection and there was only one objection supplied, that the erection of the two-storey property on the corner with the Mews Elwick Road will further reduce the visibility at a road junction that's already dangerous. How tall will this building be if it was approved? I mean, the wall is quite high. I would say probably about 8 or 9 foot high. Might be even higher than that. But could you explain how much it would protrude over the top of that wall on the corner, please? And if it would restrict visibility of traffic?
Do you want to answer that?
To Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, as set out in the report, the council's highway team didn't have any concerns in terms of highway and pedestrian safety with their proposals. The proposal's a two-storey in height, and I believe the height is set out in the report. If I can just find the correct section for you. Yeah, so the proposed dwelling has a maximum eaves height of approximately 5.2 metres and a maximum ridge height of approximately 8.6 metres, and that's set out in 5.4 of the report. But as I say, the council's highways team didn't have any concerns in terms of highway and pedestrian safety.
Okay, because there is already a wall there, so the extra height wouldn't affect anything. Thank you.
Right, thanks very much. Is there any other questions from the councillors? No. Right, we'll go on to the applicants, and it's Mr. Ray Martin Wells speaking on the behalf of the applicants.
Oh, good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members. I'm sorry I can't put my camera on for some reason. I'm sure that's not going to upset everyone. Can everyone hear me okay, though?
I can see you as well, Ray. You've come on.
Can you?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Right. You've
okay.
got.
Well, it's not showing up on mine, but that's fine. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Whilst I fully sympathise with the officer's concerns, I would respectfully disagree. I think the architect has produced a contemporary design to complement the existing Grade 2 listed building in line with previous advice given to the architect by officers in Hartlepool on similar developments within the town to go with a more contemporary design rather than one trying to be sympathetic to the existing listed building. We hope that the committee agree that the design complements the existing building rather than trying to mimic it, and therefore it keeps the individual aspects of the Grade 2 listed building to itself. In designing the proposed property, the architect has followed the principles laid down by the likes of English Heritage and similar bodies within England. And I would point out that even some of the National Trust's own properties has modern contemporary extensions or similar modern properties near their own buildings. And as members can see by the photographs, it's not exactly a garden that's there at the moment. It's literally scrubland that's being used for storage. So I don't really think that the building of a new property is going to detract at all from the existing building. And we would hope that members would agree with that and approve the application.
Right, thanks very much. Is there any questions from the members? No. Right, can I ask the objector if you want to come on, please?
We don't have an objector, Chair.
No objector, right. Sorry, we'll go straight into debate. Anybody got anything they want to bring up?
Yeah, I do.
Right. Stephen Ackers-Belcher, please.
Thank you, Chair. I remember this site as I was one of the members who approved the the Meadowcroft on the site and I suppose I say that from a planning history. And at the time, the recommendation was for refusal of that, and we went out and we done a very extensive site visit. And one of the things I remember a former councillor actually saying on the site visit and in the committee at the time was they walked around the immediate area and they could not see into this site, and they spent quite a lot of time doing that. And you know, at the end of the day, I think this site here is very secluded. Nobody can see anything from the other site. The objection is in terms of highways, which has been come through. I've noticed T's archaeological comments that they don't have any objections to the alterations on the stables within the report. And I just feel that if we didn't support this today, it's a little bit hypocritical in one sense, because when we look at, you know, recently there's buildings which have took a very contemporary approach in Hartlepool, and I know we can't judge things by example, but I would give the example of the Biz, which has been given national awards recently, and that has certainly picked up and tore up the old with new and added those in, and I just feel that on balance, nobody can see this. I feel it would be sustainable for the site. Things do have to move on, and looking through the slides, things do move on. I do feel it is appropriate. I can't see how it has any detriment to the site in full. I think it's tastefully being done and designed, and therefore I will be going against the officer's recommendations today. And, you know, people will know by my past voting record, I have always been a supporter of conservation, but you have to draw the line when I just feel this is right for the site, and it will, in my opinion, the example which has been given by the applicant's representative is there is sites across National Trust sites where people do mix new buildings up, and I think in order to safeguard these sites in the future, make them more sustainable, there has to be adjustment there, and things do need to change. So therefore I will not be supporting the recommendation.
Right, thanks very much. Can you put your hand down on the screen, please? Right, Councillor Lyons, please.
Thank you, Chair. I too will be going against the officer's recommendation of refusal because, like Councillor Stephen Akers said, that we've already approved the housing in that site, and I can't see any problem at all. There's no evidence of problems with traffic, and I use that road quite a lot. I didn't realise there was so many cars in that particular site anyway. And as I say, I think it'll enhance the area rather than going against it. So I will be supporting approval of the application. Thank you.
Right, thanks very much, Councillor Lyons. Any other people want to bring anything into the debate? Right, hang on, there's something jumped up there, but it's gone. Right, do you want to come in, Jim?
Thank you, Chair. I feel I must say that whereas the site, the actual site isn't visible. I think if you look on the pictures on page 21 of the PowerPoint, you can see the architect's own visual representation of how the site will appear in the street scene. So I don't think it's true to say that you won't be able to see this. It is visible there. Obviously, in terms of contemporary designs, each case has to be considered on its own merits and designed in respect to to how it fits in with a particular heritage asset. In terms of list of buildings, these are the most important buildings we have in the country. The buildings are listed because they're of national interest, not just local interest. And national and local policy encourages us to conserve and enhance these buildings. The site in the view of officers, and as illustrated by those drawings that provided by the applicant, is prominent and is visible. Certainly the top 2/3 of the building or half of the building will certainly be visible, and it's at the main entrance to this listed building. The estate it is true that the estate has been developed, but this part of the estate is if you like the core of the estate, the gardens around the house, and this part is largely intact, so it will be a step change in terms of what's happening around the estate. And as I say, the officer's view remains that the proposal will have a detrimental impact on the setting of the listed building and also the conservation area. Thank you.
Stephen Ackers-Belcher.
I just think, I pass the site, I know the site, and I take, account of what has been said, but I do not agree. I just feel that the advice just given from the officer, I cannot agree with it, and I'm just, I just felt it was pointed, and therefore I will not accept that advice, Chair.
Right, thanks very much. Anybody else want to bring anything up in the debate? No more debate. The recommendation is to refuse. We'll go to the vote.
Thank you very much, Chair. We'll do this as a recorded vote. So when I read your name out, if you could tell me if you are for or against the recommendation to refuse, or if you wish to abstain. So that's the recommendation is to refuse. If you could confirm whether you are for this or against this or wish to abstain. I'll start with Councillor Ackers-Belcher.
Against.
Councillor Brewer.
Against.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Buchan.
For.
Councillor Fleming.
Against.
Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Lindridge.
For.
Councillor Loynes.
Against.
Councillor Carl Richardson. Councillor Carl Richardson.
Sorry about that. Against.
Thank you. Councillor Stokel.
Against.
And Councillor Young is not voting on this one, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 voted against refusal, 3 for refusal.
Hi everybody. Just to, as is required, just to summarise the reasons that members are going against officer recommendation in this case. The views that have been expressed is secluded, and that the contemporary design is acceptable in terms of its impact on the listed building and the conservation area. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, members will need to have another vote.
Chair, can I just check on this? Why do we need another vote? Because in the past, we don't seem to have done this in the past, and it just seems a new thing. I'm happy to have another vote, but I'd like an explanation why this has been the case of late.
Okay, well, got me. Can anyone hear me? Hang on.
We can hear you, Tom.
Okay, well, with all due regard to Councillor Ackers-Belcher, that practice was prior to the lockdown, and we have had to evolve to accommodate the difficulties with dealing with virtual committee meetings. So the practice that we've applied, which is actually strictly in accordance with the protocol, I hasten to add, is that Jim Ferguson, in this sort of situation, will summarise where he thinks members are differing from officers. Then it's up to a member to propose a motion, hopefully having regard to what Jim Ferguson has had to say, for that to be seconded and then a vote to be taken. If there's no motion and no vote, then nothing happens, and the matter still remains on the agenda with nothing happening to it. So some action needs to be taken, and as I say, Jim has summarised what he believes to be the reasons for departure from members. So the next step is for somebody, a member, to move a motion if they so wish to do so, taking on board what Jim has had to say, and for someone to second it, and that will go to the vote.
Chair, I accept that, and I would like to actually move the motion that we do accept this development.
Yeah,
because
before we go on to that, I'll just bring Jim back in because Jim wants to have something to say.
You're on mute, Jim.
Just to say that I forgot to mention, we will require conditions to be delegated to the planning and development manager.
Yeah, that's right.
And the chair.
And
or
the
vice
chair.
Yeah.
Right then, we'll go back to Councillor Akers-Belcher, and you're going to propose.
Yes, I'd like to propose, and I would ask it, that we do. Obviously, the vote has been clear by members, Chair, and therefore I think it's only right that we vote on the matter to approve the development.
Right, thanks, Councillor Lyons.
I'll second that.
It?
I'll
Right.
second it, yeah.
Can we go to the vote now then?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Chair. So this is the vote to approve the application. Same as before, if you wish to approve, when I say your name, just say if you are for or against or wish to abstain. Councillor Stephen Akers-Belcher.
For.
Councillor Brewer.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Buchan.
Against.
Councillor Fleming.
For.
Councillor James.
Against.
Councillor Lindridge. Councillor Lindridge.
Apologies, against.
Thank you. Councillor Lyons.
For.
Councillor Carl Richardson.
For.
Councillor Stokel.
For.
That's 7-3, Chair. Thank you.
Right, thanks very much. Before we move on to the next item, I'm just bringing Jim back in.
Well,
Sorry, it's a full stand.
You need to do the listed building one. That's item 6.
Yeah, we're doing that one next. That's the next item.
Yeah, we're coming on to that one next, Tom, which is item 2 now on the agenda.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, we move on to item 2, and then I'll ask
Thank
to
you,
give
Chair.
us the rundown on it, please.
The item is again set out in pages 37 to 55 and handouts, and relates to the same area of land as the previous item, within the curtilage of Meadowcroft, Elk Road, Hartlepool, in the northwest of the estate. List of building consent is sought for the same development described in the previous item, comprising the erection of a 2-storey detached dwelling house with associated hard and soft landscaping and works to existing boundary treatments. The proposal is set out in full within the committee report. The relevant planning history and full site context is set out within the committee report. The application has been referred to the planning committee at the request of a local ward councillor in line with the council's scheme of delegation. The application has also been advertised by neighbour letters and site notice and a press notice. And to date, one objection has been received with the concerns including the impact on heritage assets. Responses from technical consultees are detailed within the committee report. These include objections from the Council's Heritage and Countryside Manager and Planning Policy section and Hartlepool Civic Society. The application site is within the setting of Meadowcroft and Meadowside, a Grade 2 listed building. The main consideration is the impact on the character and setting of the listed building. As per the recommendation for the previous item, for the reasons set out in the committee report, and in view of the objections from relevant consultees, it is considered that the proposals would harm the significance of the listed building at Meadowcroft and Meadowside. No evidence of any public benefit to outweigh this harm has been provided. In summary, the proposal is contrary to the identified local plan policies and those of the MPPF. The proposal is recommended for refusal for the reasons detailed in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thanks very much. Is there any questions for the officers? Just give it a second or so, because it takes a while for these little hands to come up, like. Right, no questions. So we're going to move on to the speaker for the applicants, which is again Mr. Ray Martin Wells, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. To be perfectly honest, I don't want to bore members by repeating what I've already said. Other than we stand by my earlier comments on the first application.
Right, thanks very much. Any questions for Mr. Wells? No? There's no objectors that I know of. So we'll go straight into the debate again, if we need to. Anybody got anything to say in debate? Right, Mr. Stephen Ackers-Belcher, please.
Yeah, I just would like to note the previous comments in terms that I don't feel it's harmful to the conservation area, and again, I will not be supporting the officer recommendation on this occasion.
Right, thanks very much. Councillor Lyons, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm the same. We've already voted on the previous one and I can't see any difference to this one and that one. So I will be going against the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Has anybody else got anything to say? Right, no more debate. The recommendation is to refuse. We'll go to the vote.
Thank you very much, Chair. OK, we'll start with Councillor Ackers-Belcher.
Against.
Councillor Brewer.
Against.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Buchan.
For.
Councillor Fleming.
Against.
Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Lindridge.
For.
Councillor Lyons.
Against.
Councillor Carl Richardson.
Against.
And Councillor Storkel.
Against.
Thank you very much. That's a majority in favour of voting against refusal, Chair.
Right, thanks. I'm going to Jim now for him to summarise things.
Thank you, Chair. I'm proposing we record the same reasons as we recorded previously as the reasons for going against officer recommendation. Again, conditions delegated to the Planning and Development Manager and the Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. We've got Tom there now.
Yeah, again, it's the same point in relation to we need someone to move a motion and then for that motion to be seconded and then vote on it as we did last time, Chair.
Right, thanks very much, Tom. Councillor Ackers-Belcher.
Yes, I'm happy to move the motion, Chair, based on the comments that I don't feel it's harmful to the conservation area, and that it actually helps make the site sustainable. And I would also add that the delegation goes to either the chair or the vice chair, as well as the planning officer. Thank you.
Right, thanks very much. Councillor Lyons.
I'm happy to support that, to second it, Chair. Thank you.
Right, thanks very much. We'll go to the vote then, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Okay, we'll start with Councillor Akers-Belcher.
4.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Brewer.
4.
Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Buchan.
Against.
Councillor Fleming.
4.
Councillor James.
Against.
Councillor Lindridge.
Against.
Councillor Loynes.
4.
Councillor Carl Richardson.
4.
And Councillor Stokel.
4.
That's a majority in favour of approval, Chair.
Right,
That application was approved. Okay.
right. The application's been approved then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, members.
Before we go back over, are we going back to Mike now? Right.
We are, yes.
Yeah.
Just wait for Councillor Young to join the call.
Yeah, I got my text message, so I'm back. We'll move on to straight on to item 3, which is item 1 to 14, Meadowcroft Mews, and we shall ask the officer to bring the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The item begins on page 2 of the PowerPoint on your handout. The site relates to 1 to 14 Meadowcroft Mews, a residential estate accessed via Elwick Road, Hartlepool. The site is located within the Park Conservation Area and adjacent to a Grade 2 listed building at Meadowcroft and Meadowside. Part retrospective planning permission is sought for the variation of conditions of planning approval H2014-0163, which was for the erection of a 14-unit retirement village. The permission was subject to conditions removing permitted development rights for outbuildings and boundary fencing. The proposed amendments seek to allow for the provision of sheds within each plot, which are represented by the red squares on the layout plan on screen, and privacy fencing between plots indicated by the short red lines between each plot with an indicative image of the type of fencing also shown here. The application also includes provision of brick walls at plots 1 and 14, the emission of a landscaping pod A, and replacement with 2 additional car parking bays adjacent to plot 1 in the northwest corner of the site. Finally, the application also includes the provision of a footpath to the rear of plots 5 to 9 along the eastern boundary of the site, as shown on the layout plan here. The proposal is set out in full within the committee report. Photo 1 is taken from the site access road approaching the development. In the foreground to the left and right are the brick walls at numbers 1 and 14, as well as the parking bays adjacent to number 1, for which retrospective permission is sought. 2 sheds, which also form part of the application, can be seen above the walls. Photo 2 shows part of the footpath. Photo 2 shows part of the footpath to the rear of numbers 5 to 9, for which retrospective permission is also sought. Unauthorised bamboo screens between the rear gardens, which do not form part of this application, can also be seen. Photo 3 shows the shed in the rear garden of number 6. Part of the footpath to the rear of numbers 5 to 9 can also be seen on the right of the image, adjacent to the site boundary. Photo 4 shows the shed in the rear garden of number 11. An existing protected tree belt can be seen on the right of the image. Photo 5 shows the shed in the rear garden of number 12. The protected tree belt can be seen on the left of the image. Photo 6 shows the same shed in the foreground with the shed in the rear garden of number 14 in the background. The relevant planning history and full site context is set out within the committee report. The application has been referred to the planning committee in view of the officer recommendation and as the application is part retrospective in line with the council scheme of delegation. The application has been advertised by neighbour letters, a site notice and a press notice as set out in the committee report. To date, there have been 4 letters of support. Responses from technical consultees are also detailed within the report. These include an objection from the council's heritage and countryside manager, who's raised concerns regarding the impact on the park conservation area as a designated heritage asset. The main planning considerations are identified within the report. The application site is within the setting of Meadowcroft and Meadowside, a Grade 2 listed building. that is located in the park conservation area. For the reasons set out in the report, it is considered that the proposed sheds and privacy fencing would cause harm to the park conservation area by virtue of their size, siting and design, which would detract from the character and appearance of the identified heritage asset by reducing the openness of the site and introducing further built development. This will further contribute to the wider difficulties experienced in the conservation area through loss of open space in and around properties. It is further considered that the applicant has failed to demonstrate that the harm would be outweighed by any public benefits of the development. Through the course of the application, the case officer and the heritage and countryside manager sought to engage with the applicant to seek amendments to the proposals, including a reduction in the size and relocation of the sheds to more sympathetic locations in an effort to reduce the impact on the conservation area whilst maintaining sufficient external storage space for residents. However, the applicant has declined to make any changes to the application. As such, it is considered the application is contrary to the identified policies of the Hartlepool local plan and the paragraphs of the NPPF. With respect to all other relevant material planning considerations and other elements of the proposal, the application is otherwise acceptable, subject to appropriate planning conditions were identified. In summary, the proposal is contrary to the identified local plan policies and those of the NPPF. The proposal is recommended for refusal for the reasons identified within the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Ryan. Any questions for the officer? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Ryan, where would more suitable places for the sheds be? You mentioned that a more suitable place might be more appropriate. Could you talk us through, or even show us some footage of where that might be? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Yes, through the course of the application and through discussions with the Council's Heritage and Countryside Manager, we did propose that the applicant may wish to consider smaller sheds, potentially low sheds or sentry-style sheds, which could be placed in locations adjacent against the buildings, so they're not sort of stood out in the open areas, which is obviously a characteristic of the site. So those were sort of the discussions that we had, but as advised, the applicant didn't wish to amend the application in this instance.
Is that okay, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Buchan.
Thank you, Chair. Or is it for clarity, really? The tarmac area at the side of number 1, was that area grass? And if so, is the tarmac permeable? If it's more than square meters, is that relevant?
The area to the side of plot 1, as part of the original approved plan, was supposed to be a landscaped area. This was obviously put in as parking bays instead, and then they're obviously seeking retrospective approval for that through this application. I'm not aware if the area is permeable.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Brewer.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick point of clarity. How much smaller would the sheds need to be made to be considered acceptable?
I think it's fair to say it's not for the officers to designate that. I think it's up to the applicant to apply on the basis, and I think that's a separate situation, if I'm honest. Sorry, Councillor Brewer, but I don't think that's part of the conversation.
Fair enough.
Councillor Carl Richardson.
Yeah, was there any discussion with these applicants as regards when they put these sort of garages up? Was there any discussion?
It's sheds, not garages, I think.
Sheds, sorry, then sheds. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. We were made aware of the sheds sort of after they'd been erected, so this application is part retrospective, and as advised, we did sort of propose some potential changes that they could make that may have made the application acceptable, but as advised, there's been no changes made to the application through the course of the application.
So it was just complete defiance.
I suppose it depends who's buying the sheds. Right, okay, so if there's nobody else, we'll invite the applicant to come and speak. Is the applicant there? I think you might be on mute still.
Julie Cockrell.
Hi there. You have 4 minutes with which to speak, and you can start now, please.
Oh, good morning. My name is Julie Cockrell. I'm speaking today about the conditions of the original planning decision for Meadowcroft Mews. As the committee have been unable to carry out a site visit, I hope it can be seen from the video footage that there are no garages on this site, and therefore the residents need suitable storage facilities for all their garden equipment. The footpaths that have been mentioned are for private access only for the residents, and they are both just dead ends. There have been 30 neighbours and organisations consulted about this, notices displayed close to the development and also in the local newspaper. The only objection to the variation of the conditions is from the Heritage and Countryside Manager, who suggests small storage for tools and pots. However, this is not adequate storage for bicycles, lawnmowers, patio furniture and all general garden equipment. Woodland screening between the adjoining plots ensures privacy both in garden areas, and equally the screening also creates privacy within living spaces. Meadowcroft Mews is an outstanding development, and the inclusion of outdoor storage and privacy screening does not detract from the beautiful woodland setting of this site. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the applicant? No. Okay. Is an objector on this application? Oh, Councillor Lindridge. Councillor Lindridge, are you there?
Thank you. Good morning, Julie. Yeah, could I just ask you a question? Where would you actually put bicycles if there was no sheds there? Where would you put your bicycles and your garden tools, etc.? Would they be just laid in an open space in the back of the garden with the potential of burglaries?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the issue. It's the same with lawnmowers, etc. People would have to keep lawnmowers, bicycles, their winter furniture inside their homes, which is just not feasible. They need some sort of garden storage for safety, security, and because they've all got sizable gardens that need to be maintained.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions of the applicant?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to the, I don't think there's an objector, so we'll move on to general debate. Councillor Akers-Belcher.
Thank you, Chair. The question raised by Councillor Lindridge and that what was answered is really the crucial point, I believe. There is a safety issue, and I think anybody who has a shed and probably think the kind of items to store in that, and certainly from my point of view, sometimes petrol lawnmowers, those kind of items, and I just think it's not unreasonable for the site to have sheds. And again, looking at the site visit, the only people who can really object to this is the people who live there, because those are the only people who will see those. I think it has been done. I must say I'm not a fan of retrospective applications, but on balance, I think they have got this right, and I think it is unreasonable to ask for smaller sheds to be attached to the houses when indeed there's a risk of items in there which may be a risk. So I think from my point of view, I will not be supporting this. I think it's a reasonable step by the developer, and therefore I will be supporting the development. Really, I just don't see any harm in it. I think it's been well done, and it doesn't add any detriment to the conservation area. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I pretty much support what the last two councillors have said. There is a security issue here for people's property, and I can't for the life of me see the problem with having a garden shed in a garden. That's the exact place for them. So therefore, I won't be supporting the officer's recommendation either.
Councillor Lyons.
Thank you, Chair. I'm the same. I can't see any problem with having a shed in your garden for your garden equipment, bicycles, anything like that. And to have a Sentry one, they're not very big. And to have it against a wall, if you've got a petrol lawnmower or diesel, whatever, then that's a risk to the property. So I believe that a garden shed should be in the garden for security reasons, for the equipment that's going to be stored and everything. I cannot see a problem. And Julie, you explained that the pathway at the back was only for residents, which nobody's going to object. If everybody's got a shed, why would you object? So I won't be supporting the recommendation by the officer. I'll go against it. Thank you.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I think that there are two issues here, and we only seem to be discussing the shed. I mean, on the photographs that we've seen, the video, the fencing that's been erected. I mean, if people want to put a fence in, I would have thought it would be better to have had
Councillor
something.
James, I don't think the fencing was part of the application, unless an officer wants to correct me.
Well, the officer kept mentioning the fencing as they were
Yeah, but
looking at the
officer
video.
also said at the site visit that they weren't part. The fencing wasn't part of the application. Ryan, are you going to correct me or?
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry, just to clarify, this application does include a short stretch of privacy fencing between each property, as shown on the layout plan. Yeah. But through the virtual site visit, we did see some additional unauthorised bamboo screens and mesh fencing that had been put up that doesn't form part of this application.
I apologise, Councillor James. I take it back.
Right. Right, I thought I'd heard correctly.
Sorry,
I mean, to be fair, looking at the video and the fencing in particular, because I don't have a problem with the shed for the reasons that members have already outlined, but I'm aware that we're sort of missing the other bit, which is why I'm raising it. I actually think that the fencing that's been put up makes it look more like a shantytown or a set of allotments, which is not in keeping with the aspects of the development at all. So I want to find a way to be able to separate the two, because if we're only going to take one vote, I'm going to be a bit stuck.
Tom, can I take your advice on that, please? Because I don't think we're in a position to be able to separate the items out. It's one application, isn't it? We still can't hear you, Tom, for some reason. Your microphone, you have definitely unmuted your microphone, but we still can't hear you for some reason. Try again. Try and unmute it again.
Mute.
There we go. Thanks. Top the barrister.
Yeah, I mean, if it were a larger application, for say 50 houses or something, it is possible to issue a split decision, but I wouldn't see that as feasible with an application of this size. I mean, if members feel that there are separate issues, then I think it's a matter for the applicant to come back with two separate applications. If members feel that they're opposed to it because of the screen fencing, then it might be that they need to refuse, but that leaves it open to the applicant to either amend the application or come back with a fresh application. It's not, as I say, it is a composite application, which makes life a bit difficult for members, but as I say, that's the best advice I can conjure up at the moment. I mean, Jim might have a different view, but I don't think it's appropriate to issue a split decision on something like this.
Thanks, Tom.
No, thanks, Tom. Mike, I would agree with what Tom has said. Basically, we can't really issue split decisions, so it's all or nothing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fleming.
Thanks. I was going to go along with the same as all the others regarding the sheds, but I do agree with Marjorie about the fencing being part of the thing, but obviously that's been cleared now. So thanks very much.
Councillor Brewer.
Thank you, Chair. Just two quick things. One, I'd just like to express that I think the public good of the application outweighs any sort of negative, so I would be voting against the officers on this.
Thank you.
Two,
Sorry.
I don't seem to be able to postpone the restart of my laptop, which is going to happen in just under 2 minutes. I'll try and get on as quickly as possible. Have I been through enough of it to still vote if I manage to get back on in time?
Yes, we will try and make it to the vote in a second. Unless, is Councillor Lindridge wanting to make a comment, or are you happy for me to go to the vote?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, personally, I don't think we should have split decisions, because if we're actually in, it's split twice, 3, 4 times, we're going to have to go down through each item on the application, which isn't feasible. I raised the initial point about safety with the applicant, and I thought that was important. It improves safety and the quality of life and convenience. And I think that I'm in support of going against the officer's recommendation. I don't see any problems with this. Thank you, Chair.
There doesn't look like to be any more hands up, so in the interests of Councillor Brew, we'll go straight to the vote, and we'll do it quickly, please, Joe.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Chair. I'll start with
the application's for refusal, by the way, so it's for, against, or abstention of refusal of the application.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll start with Councillor Akers-Belcher.
Unmute.
Confirm what we're voting for again, please.
So the officer's recommendation was for refusal, so it's for, against, or abstention from refusal, and I can tell what you're doing, Councillor Akers-Belcher, is quite funny.
No, it's not. Again.
Councillor Brewer.
Against refusal.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Buchan.
Against.
Councillor Fleming.
Against.
Councillor James. For. Councillor Lindridge.
Against.
Councillor Loynes.
Against.
Councillor Carl Richardson. Councillor Richardson.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Stokel. Councillor Stokel.
Against.
Thank you. And Councillor Young.
Against. Can we, Jim, do you want to come in and summarise?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've just picked out the main reasons that members gave for going against officer recommendation. There was a feeling that it was reasonable for the residents to have sheds for storage, safety and security reasons. Members felt that the proposal was not harmful or detrimental to the conservation area. I'm proposing we record those as the reasons. Thank you. Conditions delegated to the Planning and Development Manager and the Chair. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Can I have a proposer for that, and then and a seconder?
Yes, I'll propose it.
Thank you, Councillor Akers-Belcher.
I'll second it,
Thank
Chair.
you, Councillor Loynes. We'll go to the vote then. So this is now to approve the application, for, against, or abstention of approval of this application. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll start with Councillor Akers-Belcher.
For.
I believe we've now lost Councillor Brewer.
We have.
So I'll move on to Councillor Brown.
Sorry, for.
Thank you. Councillor Buchan.
For.
Councillor Fleming.
For.
Councillor James.
Against. And Chair, can I ask for my 2 votes to be recorded, and the reason to be given is the fence issue?
Yes, no problem.
Thank you.
No problem. Councillor Lindridge.
For.
Councillor Loynes.
For.
Councillor Carl Richardson.
Against.
Councillor Stokel.
For.
And Councillor Young.
For. That application is approved. We'll move on to the application 19 Croxton Close, please, and the officer's report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just wait for the presentation to show up on the screen.
We can see it now, Steph.
Great. The item starts at page 11 of the PowerPoint and the handout. The site relates to 19 Croxton Close. Planning permission is sought retrospectively for the installation of hard standing on the right side of the front garden. The proposal is set out in full within the committee report. The layout of the site in relation to neighbouring properties is shown on this plan 1 on page 12 of the PowerPoint. We can see the application site edged in red here at the bottom of the plan. Plan 2. Sorry, next slide, please. Plan 2 shows a layout of hard standing in relation to the horse bungalow. It's hard to make out, but you can just see the hard standing here on the left side. Next slide, please. An indication of the former situation at the horse bungalow is shown on page 14. Photographs of the site and its surroundings are shown on pages 15 to 18 of the PowerPoint. Here we have a view. Sorry, I've got photo 4 on my screen. The photos show the application site, and photo 4 is a view of the driveway to the side of the property.
Yeah, I think we jumped a few there by accident.
The application is being brought before the planning committee as the works are retrospective in line with the council's scheme delegation. The application has been advertised in the usual way. To date, there have been 2 objections, 1 letter of no objection and 1 letter of support. These objections are summarised in paragraph 2.11 of the committee report. Responses from technical consultees are detailed in full within the committee report. These include an objection from the council's flood risk officer in terms of an increased impact on the flood risk to the area, particularly when considering any potential cumulative impact that may result from similar development in the future. The main planning considerations are identified in the report. The council's flood risk officer has considered the information submitted by the applicant and has undertaken a site visit himself to assess the impacts of the installed hard standing. The flood risk officer considers the hard standing in question has not been demonstrated to be permeable. The development is therefore contrary to the provisions of the NPPF and policy CC1 and CC2 of the local plan. Whilst the installed hard standing at the front is acceptable in terms of its visual and neighbourability, impact and highway safety, due to this potential impact on the flood risk of the area, and for the reasons set out in the report, it is recommended that the application be refused. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for the officer? Councillor Lyons.
Thank you, Chair. Stephanie, could I just ask you, on the objections on page 20, 2.11, the applicant uses private land for access, egress and parking. Isn't that their land that they've put the block paving on? Or is it, can you explain what that means?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Lyons. I think the objection from number 20 to the western side was talking about in respect of that triangular section. I don't know if you can see in this photo on the screen. I think that objection relates to the applicant possibly driving over that triangular shaped piece of driveway there just to access their property.
Okay, it is a small area, isn't it?
Yeah,
just a small area.
Okay. Is that okay, Councillor Lyons?
Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you. Councillor Akers-Belcher.
Yes, I want to ask about the flooding issue, and I do know in the past we've had good responses on how to address these issues, and what I really want to know is throughout the process, if there is a flooding issue here, has there been any, is there any modification what can be made to this? There's obviously 2 issues here from an objection point of view, but from the flooding issue, is there any minor changes or anything the developer could do to ensure that the flooding wasn't an issue?
Does anybody want to come in from the officers? Sorry.
I'll come in
Thanks,
there,
Kieran.
Mike.
Sorry, I didn't see your hand come up there.
Yeah, so essentially the paving that's been put down is not a permeable paving, so the water will just sit on the ground, and there's been no evidence provided that there's positive drainage been put in around. So in answer to your question, no, there is nothing simple that could be done to address the flood risk issue.
Chair, can I just come back on that? So, so the issue is I'm just trying to understand the issue. So, the rain, and has there been an assessment where what the impact would be, where that water would go, or, you know, for instance, putting a drain in, would that alleviate the problem?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think we don't want to get hung up on that this paved area is causing the flood risk problem. It's the precedent that it sets that we're taking up grassland, permeable surfaces, to put impermeable surfaces down, and that rainwater's got to find somewhere to go. So this property in isolation is probably not going to cause a major issue. But if everybody else within that estate then followed suit and did the same, then we're going against policy, and that's when we would have the cumulative problem.
So can I just see clarification? I've in my back garden, I've got a lawn. If I decided to tarmac, put something over that, or if I decided to put something down on my drive, you know, pave it, would that then be a planning issue? Or is it just because of where these people live, because of the previous estate planning rules? I'm just trying to understand, because if somebody's, you know, if they've got a lawn out the back, could everybody on that estate decide to put concrete over the lawn? And if so, would they need planning permission to do that?
If I can assist, householders have what's called permitted development rights, and in respect to creations of hard standings, they are restricted in respect to the fronts of the property. I think to 5 square meters, but the area has to be either permeable or drained to a suds or whatever within the plot. To the back, basically the allowances are, is it the same? All right, sorry, anything over 5 square meters, I correct myself. Anything over 5 square meters that's non-permeable requires permission at the back. So basically, I think what the government was trying to do when it introduced it is to try and reduce the amount of surface water that was going to the sewers. So the idea was that by allowing people to do changes that were permeable, that would be dealt with within the site, if you like, by natural infiltration. So that's why, if it's not permeable, it needs planning permission. Thank you. Okay.
Tom, did you want to come in? You're still on mute, Tom.
I'm mute. Am I unmuted again?
You're fine. You're there now. We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'd like to confirm everything that Jim Ferguson has said. The permitted development rights for the laying of hard standing were amended. I think Jim is right. The limit is 5 square meters. If it's over 5 square meters, then the hard surface has to be either permeable, which means that the water can run through it, and there are a number of systems on the market now that allow you to do that. Or alternatively, it has to be what we call a sustainable drainage solution, which means keeping the water on site, and that's normally by way of some form of circuleway or surface water runoff into an adjoining lawn or something. And I suspect, I'm not going to comment on the engineering point here, but it seems to me from what's been said that obviously we have an impermeable surface, but there is no mechanism for a sustainable drainage solution. You know, like drainage channels going off into a nearby garden or something. So that's my venture into the world of engineering, Chair.
Thanks, Tom. Councillor Lindridge.
Thanks, Chair. Just for clarity, was has there been any flooding issues or flooding potential in that area in the past? And even though I've sort of reread this, I was going to say, was permeable material recommended? But obviously this is retrospective. Was the applicant, are you aware if the applicant was aware that he should have been laying permeable material as opposed to hard standing?
Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, I'll come back on that. It's within our policy, and it's within national guidance that this is. It's not for. It's a difficult one because it's not for us to go around telling absolutely every man and his dog that they need to be putting permeable in when it's in the policy. In terms of the flood risk, again, I expect from this size of area alone on this standalone property, the flood risk is probably not significant. It's the greater good that could, if everybody on that area did the same and created a concrete jungle, then all of a sudden that rainwater's got to go somewhere.
Or in this case, brickwork.
Concrete brickwork.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. In some ways, Kieran's just said where I was going to add to the debate, because the fact is that if you've got 20, 30 properties in a cul-de-sac and they start to put non-permeable surfaces down, you could say, well, the first 5 through the gate are going to be okay because the majority still would be all right. But what happens about number 6 and number 7? Because they would then point and say, well, you allowed them to do it, so why won't you allow me? And that is the dilemma that members are going to have to wrestle with here.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask whoever's sharing their screen to stop sharing it, please? Because we're now all over. We seem to have gone all over the place. I've just got a picture of my logo. I don't know what everybody else has got on their screen.
I have as well, and Kieran and Marjorie. Oh, I've just got myself and Marjorie on now.
Yeah, I think Tim might be sharing his screen.
Tim. Is it you, Tim?
If it is, he doesn't know.
We've got CITC approaching. So.
Can you make sure they're socially distanced when you get there, please? Thank you.
We're back.
That's never happened before. Okay, thanks for that, Councillor James. We've got the applicant with us, I believe. You've got 4 minutes with which to put your case across. Is the applicant there? Do we have the applicant? Could be on mute.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, is that Mr. Sanger?
Yes, yes.
Excellent. You've got 4 minutes. Please start now.
Right. Good morning. The reason for this planning application before you today is because the hard standing area in my front garden, which I unwittingly commissioned without the knowledge of the SUDS 2008 regulations, is not constructed from permeable material. This was determined by the council's flood risk officer, and I was asked to submit a planning application by the council's enforcement officer in accordance with the SUDS 2008 regulations, which requires planning permission if the surface is not permeable. My title deeds specifically permit the use of my front garden for car parking space purposes. The SUDS regulations were introduced in 2008 following the floods of 2007 because it was considered that many of the drains associated with older properties were not able to cope with heavy rainfall. My property is on a modern estate some 3 years old, and the drainage system is built to modern standards. The road drains particularly well, and surface water disappears rapidly when rainfall ceases. My hard standing is well constructed and is in keeping with the road and other driveways on the estate. In the 2 years that I have occupied the property, there have been many periods of sustained heavy rainfall, and there's been no discernible difference in the amount of surface water on the road and surrounding areas since before and after the hard standing was constructed. The prospect of local flooding due to my hard standing is hypothetical and in reality does not exist, particularly when the topography is taken into account. That is, the estate, which includes my road and property, is situated on the side of a hill. My road runs from west end, the top, to the east into a strip of wasteland at the bottom east end of the road. The strip of wasteland runs the whole length downhill of the eastern side of the estate, running from south to north, dropping into a culvert at the northern extremity. The council's flood risk officer does not indicate that my hard standing is a flood risk, but recommends refusal of planning permission on the grounds of precedent. If this is to be used as a valid objection rather than the actual flood risk, then the SUDS 2008 regulation stating that the planning permission is needed if the surface is not permeable is redundant, and planning permission would never be granted. I believe the intention of the SUDS regulation calling for planning permission was for each application to be judged on its own flood risk. My hard standing area presents no additional flood risk to the area whatsoever. I therefore respectfully submit that my planning application is approved.
Is that everything? Okay, I think that was the end of that statement. Any questions for the applicant? None. Okay, is there an objector to speak? Oh, Councillor James, sorry. Councillor James?
No, it's okay, Chair. I was preempting you moving on to debate, and you didn't do that, so I took my hand down.
Apologies.
But it'll be going back up as soon as we go into debate.
I will remember. I'll write it down. There we go. No objector for this application. Mr. Sanger's requesting to be added back into the call. He's obviously lost his signal there. Can you sort that out, please, Joe?
Yep, just letting them back in, Chair.
I temporarily got disconnected there. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, do you want to continue? You had about 40 seconds left. Did you want to say something else?
I've said all I can say, really.
Okay, that's fine. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so there's no objector, and we will therefore go into general debate. And Councillor James was first in that list.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I mean, I think that the applicant has actually well outlined exactly the dilemma that I said. The problem is that he's the first one through the gate, and therefore can argue quite rightly that, well, I'm not going to cause a flooding risk because it's only my property that's going to be affected. The fact is that where do you then stop the snowball? Because further down the line, you will have set a precedent, and other properties can do exactly the same thing. And we will then have the flooding issue. So unfortunately, I can't support the residents' application on this, and I will be voting against it.
Councillor Lindridge.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, valid points by Councillor James in terms of setting a precedent, right? I'm not really sure whether we're here to decide on that issue now. We have to look at the information that's in front of us. I personally felt that the applicants put a strong case forward. It is difficult in those terms. So this is the dilemma we've got. I think I would be going against the officer's recommendation on this case. Thank you.
Councillor Lyons.
Thank you, Chair. I know this area very well, and I've been round to have a look, and not to see Mr. Sanger. I just drove past and had a good look. Parking is an absolute nightmare, as it is in our close as well. I think the applicant has tastefully done the front, ladies drive, for parking reasons as well. I can't see any problem. There's one of the objections has got, it's directly across the road from his neighbour. Well, you know, if you know the area, you're going to be like that all the time. And I think the applicant has actually done a fantastic job, and I will be going against the officer's recommendation of refusal. Thank you.
Councillor Eggers-Belcher.
Thank you, Chair. I have a lot of sympathy with the applicant here. I am concerned about the future policy around this, and Councillor James decided that. and I do share those concerns. I think if I, as an aside, and I'm not expecting a response from this, but I would hope that we can look at the policy, and in particular whether in future conditions can be put forward, because I can see there being a cost implication for local authorities in the future. But I do think it's unfair. I think the policy is very unfair. In my street, I can't tell you how many lawns, those kind of grassed areas there are, because the majority of people have just taken them away, and I just think it's unfair. And I think the council could be very busy looking at retrospective applications based on this application today. I am in the dilemma how to vote, and I haven't made my mind up yet, but I have regard for future President Sett. That clearly we need to review this, and I know there's a national policy here, but certainly if there'd been an option of where these issues were arising in the future, and a condition was some kind of contribution, then I think it would have made it a lot easier, where there's assistance where people choose to have these, because it is unfair, and but I can see why it's in place. Thank you.
Kieran?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to come back on a couple of points that have been raised through debate, starting with Councillor Lawrence's point. I don't think anybody's in disagreement that the paving scheme looks good, that it's serving a useful job and benefiting the property and taking cars off the road. I don't think that's in any question at all. The question is that it's just not been built with the right materials, porous. And I say, although we know that it's not a flood risk in its own right, it's that potential for the cumulative effect. And the applicant made reference to living at the top of the hill. That's okay if you live at the top of the hill. It's the people that live at the bottom of the hill that we're concerned about from a flood risk point of view. And just picking up on Councillor Akers-Belcher's point about the busy officers from a retrospective planning point of view, I take that on board, and this is relatively new legislation policy that's come in. But I'm conflicted because I'll either have busy planning officers through retrospective applications, or I'll have busy officers through the flood risk team, who are obviously having to deal with impermeable surface water dispersing somewhere else. Thank you.
Councillor Lyons.
Thank you. Could I come back on Kieran's?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, please. If it was approved that we go against the officer's refusal, if the applicant was to put a drain in, which those plastic ones, aren't there? We've had one in our drive. Would that help the situation? And I understand about the flooding, but as I've been around there when it's been raining, and I can't see any problem with flooding, but I understand what you're saying. But I just wondered if.
So you suggest right? Okay, so okay.
Yeah, if possible.
Depending on what happens with the application, that could be a potential condition. Okay.
Yeah.
It's difficult, just to come back on that one, Chair. It's difficult because to date we've asked for the technical details of the paving scheme. Is it porous? And nothing has come back to us. Nothing has been provided to the flood risk team. Without knowing the ins and outs of the levels of the site, it could be possible to retrofit a drain, but again, it would have to disperse into a sustainable system rather than the highway drainage. And again, I can't reiterate enough that it's not necessarily a drainage issue on this plot alone. So I grant that you might have visited the site and there is no flood risk there. It's the cumulative impact that this would have.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a very difficult one, this, and like several members before have said it, I'm very, very torn. I see all the benefits. Cars parked all over the road cause upset with neighbours, so there's a massive social benefit for getting the close so the neighbours can get up and down. But I do get the knock-on effect, even if it doesn't cause flooding there, that water's got to go somewhere. And as the applicant said, he lives on a hill, but then the water's going to go down the hill, but ultimately it's got to go somewhere. I do like the idea that Brenda come up with of some sort of retrospective drain. And I don't think that's a bad idea, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Akers-Belcher.
Thank you. I can't leave the comment what's been made, the response from Kieran Bostock. My comment about officers being very busy is I do think that there has been a lot of this happening in Hartlepool, and certainly it wasn't a flippant response, and the response I had back, I felt needed to be said that there is a genuine issue where there's a level of unfairness where people have just done this in their own environments and in their own areas, and it is going to present a resource issue based on a decision today. And I think I would just make the point I'm making, at no point have I being aware of any training in terms of this new legislation. It may have happened, but certainly I think members of this committee and other committees, for instance Regen or wherever it falls, should be appraised of this issue, because I can see an issue arising where retrospective planning needs to be put in place by this. And yes, we may have flooding and people may be very busy, but we need to get this right.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, because do we have a situation where we now then go out and put enforcement on all of those that have got historic replacement lawns with brickwork? It's a very interesting point. Okay, there's no more general debate because I've got no hands up. The officer's recommendation is for refusal of this application. That's 4 against or abstention for refusal of this application. I'll hand over to Joe.
Thank you very much, Chair. Okay, as the Chair just said, the recommendation is to refuse. I'll start with Councillor Akers-Belcher.
Against.
Councillor Brewer?
Sorry, I don't think that I can vote.
You can't. No, you
That's
can't.
correct. You're missing for a lot of it. Councillor Brown?
Abstain.
Councillor Buchan?
Against.
Councillor Fleming?
Against.
Councillor James?
For.
Councillor Lindridge?
Against.
Councillor Loynes?
Can I just ask again, is it for
refusal? So it's refusing the application we're looking at now. So it will be, if you said for refusal, it will be against the applicant.
Right, so it's against then.
Councillor Carl Richardson?
For.
Councillor Stokel?
Against.
And Councillor Young?
Against. That's carried. So we need to proceed to a summary. Is Jim able to give a summary? Ferguson, that is.
Yes, yes, Chair. I'll try. Just picking up on Jim's point, which referred back to the case made by the applicant. So just picking out the nuts and bolts of the applicant's case, I think I would say that that was in itself, and this is agreed by Kieran, I guess, the development wouldn't be likely to cause flooding issues. Okay. And the other point picked up by Brenda was that in visual terms, the proposal is acceptable. So I would propose to record those 2 reasons.
Okay, can I have a proposer for the new vote then, please, to approve the application?
Chair.
Oh, sorry, Tom. Chair. Do you want to, sorry, Councillor James. Can I just bring Tom in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tom.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I keep muting it. Usual thing about conditions delegated to officers subject to. Yeah.
Fine. Sorry. That's fine. It's okay. Great stuff. Councillor James.
Right. Before we go to the vote, Chair, and I accept what Tom's just said about the conditions being given to officers and the chair to deal with, but the debate in the council in the chamber today has actually been that a retrospective drainage system be utilised to try and deal with this off-run of water on this one location. So I would want to see that in the recommendation before I actually am asked to vote.
Okay. So is there a way of adding that to the conditions? Or are we in strange territory there, Tom?
Yeah, I'm trying to flag up here, but Where are we? I mean, I think, as I understand it, the application is without a further drainage solution, so it is what it is. I'm not sure. I don't think it would be appropriate to add a condition which requires the installation of a sustainable flooding solution. The other problem I've got with that is that the engineering evidence so far doesn't demonstrate that the site has the capacity to provide a sustainable drainage solution anyway. So I don't think that could be one of the conditions. I think one takes it as it is, but I'm not sure whether Jim has a view on any additional conditions in terms of the future of the site or whatever.
Well, I think as chair, I agree with what you've just said, to be honest, Tom, because that was my feeling.
Yeah.
Well, can I come back, Chair?
Of course you can. Yeah.
Right, because going back to what Kieran said is that there's been a request made as to what the material actually is that's being used and whether it is permeable or not, and that information has not been provided. So I would want to see a condition that requires that to be provided. And if the outcome is that it is not permeable at all, then that we actually advise the resident to try and put something in that would allow rainfall to fall through at least part of this pavement by putting something in, and that should be possible.
Okay, this is a bit obscure in terms of, I'm going to ask Ryan to come back in and ask whether he knows 100% whether it's permeable or not permeable, because I'm sure I heard something in the report, but I'm not going to second guess because I got it wrong last time.
Yeah, if I could butt in, Chair, it's paragraph 2.24 of the officer's report.
Yes.
Yeah, the flood risk officer considers, and then it goes on to say that we don't, at the moment, we do not have information as to whether it's truly porous or not, or that there is a satisfactory runoff. So it's that paragraph there. So yeah, I think that precludes the council adding the proposed condition. I mean, if members, I describe myself as Mr. No Adjournment in the sense that I very rarely ask for adjournments in court hearings, but if members are concerned that this information needs to be in front of them before they make a decision, then I would respectfully suggest that one alternative is to defer the matter until the council's flood risk officer can provide further reasoning, and if need be, in conjunction with the applicant.
I would agree, Tom. Apart from this has been prepared for some time now, and this is, we've had this report before us twice, and if that information hasn't been able to be gleaned in that period of time, that leaves me a bit frustrated, if I'm honest, and I'm sure other members would agree with that. I think what I'm going to suggest is Councillor James has proposed that we potentially look. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Councillor James, so please correct me. But
others have tried; it's never been done yet.
I know. What I'm thinking is that if you're adamant that you want to know whether it's porous or not, which I think is the case, just you're going to wait till I finish that, I can see. Then what I'm going to suggest is that we go to a separate vote on that issue based on deferment. Am I allowed to do that, Tom?
Oh.
Yeah, yes, Chair. Members are entitled to defer for further information.
Councillor James, so if you're wanting to propose potential deferment based on the porousness of the material, then if you propose that and there's a second there, we'll go to a vote on that issue.
Well, can I just say, I wasn't going to ask for a deferment at all. That's not what I was asking for, is it?
Okay, that's fine.
Right. What I was asking for was that following an outcome here, and let's assume that it goes in the positive for the development, then we still need to know what the material is, and that if it is found to be non-porous or very poor at drainage, then we advise the resident to put something in that would assist. That's what I said.
Yeah,
But if my only outcome is to go for deferment, then that's what I'll have to do. Because at the moment, I feel that I can't vote for this in favour of the resident. I would have to support the recommendation.
Dan, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's just to provide clarity that as officers, we've asked for these details and this testing numerous times. It's not been forthcoming, and I think I'm right in saying that it's understood it definitely isn't porous. So if that is of assistance to members, that we know that almost matter of factly it isn't porous. I think going back to what Tom was saying about considering the application before us, we as officers have pushed and asked for this information from the applicant, and it hasn't been forthcoming. So the application it is what's before sort of members, and seeking retrospective details, whether there'd be a guarantee that we'd be able to come up with an acceptable scheme. I'd obviously have to defer to the flood risk officer for that, but we have been pushing for it.
I'm just acutely aware that we've taken this to a vote, having had a lot of time to debate and ask questions, and what I'm unhappy with is the fact that Councillor James has made the point in debate and still didn't get the response. So I'm frustrated on her behalf in that respect, because she did address that at the time. I am, unless Tom's going to stop me, I think I'm just going to request that we get a proposal and a seconder for deferment at this point, and then we'll go to a vote for deferment unless Councillor James wants to say no or Tom wants to say no.
No, that's procedurally acceptable, Chairman.
Chair, move deferment.
Could I just come in there, Chair, before you start with the vote?
Yes, you can. Yeah, we haven't had a second yet, so yes, you can.
I just think it's an important point as well. Looking at the photographs and knowing where it is, and I should have brought it up earlier, the road actually into the close is made of the same brickwork. So surely the developers should have been brought in before that. If that's not, permeable or whatever you want to call it, then surely the developers are wrong as well for putting those brickworks down. Because as I see it, the applicant has actually sort of matched it. So what is the problem here? It should be the developers.
We're in really strange territory, Councillor Lyons, because we've exited debate. We've had a vote. Mm-hmm. There's been a suggestion about deferment, and I'm kind of feeling that we need to move it on. And I think the suggestion that I've made in terms of because if we go to a vote on deferment, we haven't had a seconder for that yet, and I'm aware that
I've had my hand up for a while.
Well, there's a number before you as well, Councillor.
Yeah, and I'd like to come back as well,
Chair. People are just bumping in and interrupting.
Well,
I just thought it was an important point.
Case in point. So, Councillor, what I'm going to do is I'll take based on the fact that I've been interrupted. I shall bring Councillor Brown in. I'll go through the members who are on there, and then we shall look at the seconder for the deferment. That's what we're going to do. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to be that seconder, if I may.
Okay. I've said I'll take the councillors in order, so I'll take Councillor Eggers-Belcher now.
Thank you. This is a motion which has previously been said that we can move a motion. Now, clearly, is it not the case? And I apologise if this has been said, because for a few moments I'd lost the headphones. But clearly, can a motion not be put forward in relation to a condition? And I can't see a reason why a member, instead of this, why a member can't move a motion that the condition of the extra tray is delegated to the chair and the officers, as we would in any other case. We've done this previously, and I'll probably be told we might have done it wrong in the past. But in the past, while I've been a member of this committee, a member has moved something, and that has been accepted and what I would like to move as a way forward is that we delegate officer and the chair to look at an opportunity at an alternative to address this issue, and whether that's something like a French drain or not, I don't know what that is. But what I'm saying is, in order to move this on, I would like to move that we delegate our officer and our chair to look at a condition which would address this issue.
Yeah, I think Kieran said that it was maybe difficult to do that, but I'll bring Kieran back in just a point we made earlier about whether it would be possible to do that.
Yeah. So in terms of converting this driveway to a permeable surface, that's not possible. You can't retrofit a porous system in because it's all to do with the stonework underneath, not necessarily the blocks that are on top.
And the drainage?
The drainage side of things, again, without looking at the technical details of the site, I think it would be possible to deal with it through a surface water condition, potentially put some perimeter drainage around the site and discharge to a soakaway within the grassed area itself. So I think that's a lot more feasible.
Okay, so we will, unless Councillor James is going to, because I can see your hand up, would Councillor James be happy with that? Because I think that's what you asked for in the first place.
Well, yes, we've sort of gone full circle, really. So
We have.
I'm happy with the outcome if we accept what Kieran's just said. But what I wanted to respond to was what Brenda had said about the road surface and the paved area surface as being the same. The difference is that when the developer put the site in, there would have been gullies included in the road surface, which would run into Northumbrian Water's sewerage system with their consent. Now, that is not the case for somebody who lives in a private residence. They don't have that consent. So they can't just say, oh, well, we'll just wash it over the pavement into the road gully. They've got to have another alternative solution that is for them. So that is the major difference between somebody doing it to their own property and the people that actually put the development site in.
Okay, Councillor Richardson, Carl Richardson.
Yeah, what I was wondering about, I would be interested in deferment if the following questions could be answered. First of all, can we not ask the gentleman that's here, would it be possible for him to put a drainage system in? And if that's possible, because the whole issue for me is the precedent that this is going to create, are the other residents in that area able to do the same?
I think the issue there, Councillor Carl Richardson, is the fact that we passed that point in the procedure, so we can't go back to the applicant and say, but it's certainly something we could consider as a condition. And as Kieran said, that it could be possible to do that. I think that's probably how we need to move forward. We've had one vote, that's gone against officer's recommendation. We're now looking to either defer or approve the application based on a vote. And I would suggest that, as we've gone full circle, as Councillor James said, my suggestion would be that if Kieran's saying that there may be a possibility of doing that, we condition that, and then we can proceed with the vote now to whether we approve or not this application. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Lyons.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not in agreement with deferment because we've already deferred it once, and it was me that asked for a site visit. I wanted to go personally and have a look, but the video that we saw this morning, it did clarify a little bit. But for anybody that doesn't know the area, then it might have been a bit wishy-washy. But I would, and I suggested probably putting a drain in. If that would get the approval of the application. Okay. So I would go with Councillor Akers-Belcher's recommendation.
Okay, so for purposes of record, if we're going along with what Kieran has suggested and what Councillor Akers-Belcher has suggested, is Councillor James happy to remove her motion for deferment?
Yes, Chair, because I didn't really want to defer. I wanted a condition.
Okay, Councillor Akers-Belcher.
I just wanted to make the point: if there's a stumbling block with this drain, then I'm right in saying that the proviso is it would come back to committee, and I just feel that needs to be said. So if suddenly something happens and the terms and conditions or the conditions are not accepted, then this committee would see this again, and I just thought that needed to be said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fair comment. Thank you.
Can I move the vote be put?
Yeah. Okay. Well, Councillor Indridge's hand is struggling to go up. I can see it's flickering on the screen, Councillor Indridge. So go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah. With respect to the other councillors' comments and officers, we've taken the vote, and it's my belief the fact that this is a one-off issue here. If this was to set a precedent, we're in a position where we can decline that precedent, so to speak, by making decisions if future applications come up. I do agree with Councillor Christopher Akers-Belcher that we could. Sorry, beg your pardon, Stephen. My apologies.
We do all look the same, don't we?
Yeah, you're both good looking. Yeah. The decisions could be deferred to the chair, etc. So we don't want to prolong this anymore.
Are you seconding Councillor Akers-Belcher's?
I am.
Move to the vote. Okay, we move to the vote. The application. This is for approval of the application. Come on, Mike. That was a long one, wasn't it? So it's for, against, or abstention from approval of this application, and I'll hand over to Joe, please.
Thank you very much, Chair.
With the condition, Chair.
With the condition that we'll pursue a drainage solution with the applicant.
Okay.
Noted. Continue.
Right, Councillor Akers-Belcher.
For.
Councillor Brewer.
I don't believe I can.
Of course, sorry. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Buchan.
For.
Councillor Fleming.
For.
Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Lindridge.
For.
Councillor Loynes.
For.
Councillor Carl Richardson.
For.
Councillor Stokel.
For.
And Councillor Young.
For.
Unanimous.
Thank you. That application is approved. Can I just thank Mr. Sanger and other guests that are on this call today, because some of them have been here since 9 AM and the site visits. So I just want to extend a word of gratitude for you being here for that whole period of time, and I wish you well. So that application is approved.
Subject to conditions.
Subject to conditions between myself, the officers, and myself, and a suitable solution for the drainage. Thank you. You're free to leave the call if you're still there. You're free to leave. Does Councillor Loynes want to say something? Oh, you're on mute, Councillor Loynes.
Sorry, I was going to request a comfort break. We've been sat here for over 2 hours now.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll take a 5-minute comfort break. And yeah, that's fairness. That's fair. Okay. Thank you. Take a comfort break for 5 minutes. We'll reconvene at 25 past or thereabouts.
Right, we're back on, Chair.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody's patience in that respect. We've been, as I say, we've been on the call for almost 2 hours now, so it was important that we had a break. Number 5, so application number 5 is item 3 on your main agenda, and I'll hand over to Ryan, please.
Thank you, Chair. The item begins on page 20 of the PowerPoint and your handout. The site relates to an area of land within the curtilage of Meadowcroft, Elwick Road, Hartlepool, in the north of the estate. The proposed property is a Grade 2 listed building located within the Park Conservation Area, both of which are designated heritage assets. Planning permission is sought for the demolition of existing stables, part demolition of and amendments to an existing garage block, creation of a new access and erection of a detached bungalow, including retention and incorporation of an existing wall with associated hard and soft landscaping and works to the existing boundary treatments. The proposal is set out in full within the committee report. The proposed layout of the site shows the proposed bungalow either side of the retained high wall in the centre of the site. The existing garage is proposed to be part demolished and a new access created in the west. Here are the existing elevations and floor plans of the structures on site, as well as the proposed amendments to the boundary wall at the site entrance. Can we have the next slide, please? To the bottom of the slide is the proposed north-facing rear elevation of the site as viewed from Elwick Road. The existing wall can be seen in front of the proposed bungalow. The current slide shows the existing and proposed plans for the garage on... Sorry, excuse me. Can we go back, please, Dan? This slide shows the existing and proposed plans for the garage on site. An image of the previous conservatory on site, which has since been removed, is provided at the bottom of the plans. On the next slide are the proposed elevations and floor plans of the bungalow. The existing high wall to be retained can be seen running through the centre of the bungalow and shown on the north and south facing elevations. Photo 1 is a view towards the site from the northeast, looking across Elwick Road. Top of the existing high wall to be retained can be seen above the existing boundary wall. Photo 2 is again a view from outside the site across Elwick Road, this time from the northwest. The listed building at Meadowcroft can be seen in the background above the existing boundary wall. Photo 3 shows the existing access arrangements to the listed building at Meadowcroft. The proposed new access will be created between the 2 existing gates. Photo 4 shows the front garden area of Meadowcroft with the existing high wall to the north. The proposed bungalow is to be built on either side of the wall. Panning further to the right, the next photo shows the rest of the front garden area of Meadowcroft and the adjoining property at Meadowside on the right-hand side of the image. Photo 6 is looking back towards the horse property at Meadowcroft. Photo 7 shows the existing garage structure and the enclosed bay on the end, which is proposed to be demolished to make way for a new access to the site. Photo 8 shows the remainder of the existing garage structure, which is proposed to be retained. Photo 9 is taken from the other side of the high wall, running through the site, and shows the existing stable building on the north side of the wall. The boundary wall of the site with Elwick Road beyond can be seen to the left. The relevant planning history and full site context is set out within the committee report. The application has been referred to the planning committee at the request of a local ward councillor in line with the council scheme of delegation. The application has been advertised by neighbour letters, a site notice and a press notice. To date, there have been no representations. Responses from technical consultees are detailed within the committee report. These include objections from the council's heritage and countryside manager, landscape architect, planning policy section and Hartlepool Civic Society. The main planning considerations are identified within the report. The application site is within the setting of Meadowcroft and Meadowside, a Grade 2 listed building that is located in the Park Conservation Area, both of which are designated heritage assets. Meadowcroft is Grade 2 listed and therefore considered nationally important. The significance of the listed building lies in part due to the setting provided by its generous grounds. The law requires that attention is paid to preserving the setting of the listed building. The council's local plan states that the council will ensure harm is not caused through inappropriate development within the setting of the listed building. Meadowcroft Estate contributes to the significance of the conservation area, in part due to its generous grounds, and a particular concern in the conservation area is the loss of gardens and open spaces. The conservation area is considered to be at risk due to inappropriate development and development within the setting of buildings. The proposal would result in the permanent loss of one of the few original remaining garden areas, and it is considered would have a detrimental impact on both the setting of the listed building and the character of the conservation area. In view of this and the objections from relevant consultees, for the reasons set out in the report, it is considered that the proposals would harm the significance of both the park conservation area and the listed building at Meadowcroft, and in turn the visual amenity of the site and the character of the area. No evidence of any public benefit to outweigh this harm has been provided. In respect of all other relevant material planning considerations, it is considered that the application would otherwise be acceptable subject to appropriate planning conditions, as identified. In summary, the proposal is considered to be contrary to the identified local policies and those of the PPF. The proposal is recommended for refusal for the reasons detailed in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Ryan. Councillor James, got a question for the officer?
I have. Can we actually go back on the screen to the beginning where you showed the gates to Meadowcroft and the gates to the development that's already in place?
Dan? Is it playing up? I almost got mine out and put it on the camera.
There, you've gone past it.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Dan, did you actually suggest that where the curved bit of wall is at the moment between the two entrances, that there is going to be a third entrance there?
Thanks, Councillor. Yes, that's correct. You can see on the layout plans there that that's where the access will be between those two gates.
So there won't actually be any of that wall left, really, or nothing of any significance. Is that right?
Yeah, they'll be removing a good portion of that wall to put the gate in there.
So there would be very little other than maybe what you would call a pillar in between three sets of gates.
Yes, you can see at the top right of this plan here, the three sets of gates there.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the officer? No, I believe we have the applicant with us. I think it's Mr. Cockrell. You've got 4 minutes with which to put your case across, please, sir, and that starts now.
Good morning, all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Steve Cockrell. For 130 years, Meadowcroft and its grounds were hidden behind a 12-foot wall for the exclusive enjoyment of the privileged few. In 2015, the Planning Committee approved the construction of 14 Mews-style cottages for the over 55s on an unused paddock area. This development is now fully occupied, resulting in 14 further council tax contributors to Hartlepool Council, with 14 very happy residents enjoying a wonderful setting. The development is of a very high quality and has often been described as an asset to the town. The development created the opportunity for Hartlepool residents to downsize to suitable accommodation without having to leave the town. This is also our intention with this application. This application is to build a contemporary high-spec single-storey property on the original footprint of a Victorian conservatory and a kitchen garden. This can be seen from the photographs submitted with the application. The south-facing elevation will be the living area where the original conservatory once was located, and the north elevation will be the bedrooms where the old potting sheds were located. This new home will retain the original wall, which was 130 years old, as a feature of the property. I appreciate that the planning officers are in a difficult position with new build applications in conservation areas, but there have been no objections from neighbours or members of the general public to this application. May I also point out that planning officers oppose the Mews development, but this has been a wonderful, successful project benefiting the town. Unfortunately, large Victorian properties built for the ship owners and industrialists are no longer feasible in the current age, and this new dwelling will not impede on the original listed building. It will be a fine example for future generations to compare 19th century architecture with 21st century architecture. The original listed building, Meadowcroft, will still retain its original historical significance as a large Victorian villa, which will be set within substantial grounds of approximately 2 acres. The photographs that your officer showed of the rear garden, not the front garden. And as I said, there are still 2 acres of grounds left at Meadowcroft. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the applicant? I don't think there's an objector to speak. Okay, we'll go into general debate. Councillor James.
I just want to ask for a legal opinion, really, Chair, on this issue, because I do take a bit of an exception to what Mr. Cockrell's put into the meeting. Can I have confirmation, please, Tom, that the potential income of council tax is not a material planning condition?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
I agree with Councillor James on that one. It's not a material planning consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any further general debate? Councillor Akers-Belcher. You're on mute, Councillor Akers-Belcher.
Yeah, thank you. I'm getting lots of hand gestures. I don't know if that's let me know I'm on mute or not. But just to say that the application, looking at this, I think it is a difficult one. I am a little bit concerned about the wall, but on the exterior. But the added value to this is I quite like the way. The contemporary way that the wall will be used within the feature of the building, and I think that in itself does demonstrate forward thinking around making sites of interest like this sustainable in the future. And as previously said, I don't really see how this can be a detriment to the site, and therefore I will be voting against the officer's recommendation on this. And as I say, I'm quite, it might seem quite sad really, but I'm quite excited about the use of that wall within in any buildings. And what planning history tells me is this site has been done very well, and it was never going to be approved this without the forward thinking of the previous planning committees, and I don't have any concerns about how the site's been designed. And as I say, I just think it's quite exciting, and we've seen recently in Hartlepool old buildings getting used with a modern touch to it, which has actually won national awards. And as I say, I know we can't bring that into our decision making as we judge everything on its own merit. But I think in the future, if this is approved today, it'll be quite an exciting building, and I do think it will bring positive recognition from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jim Lindridge. Councillor Lindridge, are you there?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I think I would endorse, well, not think, I'm endorsing what Councillor Stephen Akers-Belcher has just said. I feel as if Meadowcroft's been hidden away for many years, and there might have been a privileged few being able to see behind the grounds. So I think it's important that developers have the foresight, like Mr. Cockrell, that's it, yeah, that have the foresight to sort of contrast the old with the new. It is a difficult one in terms of supporting officers for the heritage side of things. I said, but I will be actually supporting the applicant on this time. Thank you.
Councillor Lyons.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Yes, I agree with what's been said so far. I think it is an asset to the town. I think it's been tastefully done. and bringing the old and the new together. And I will be supporting the applicant, Mr. and Mrs. Cockrell, for this, because I think it's a fantastic area, and I too am excited about it. I hope it soon gets done as well. Okay, thank you.
If there's no further general debate, which it looks like there isn't, the officer's recommendation for this application is for refusal. So it's for refusal, against refusal, or abstention, and we'll go to the vote.
Thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Akers-Belcher.
Against.
Councillor Brewer. Councillor Brewer.
Sorry, muted. Against.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Buchan.
Against.
Councillor Fleming.
Against.
Councillor James.
For. And can I have that recorded, please?
Yes. Councillor Lindridge.
Against.
Councillor Loynes.
Against.
Councillor Carl Richardson.
Against.
Councillor Stokel.
Against.
Councillor Young.
Against. Okay, are you able to summarise, please, Jim?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just thinking about what everybody said, I think I would sum it up as members being of the view that the proposal would have an acceptable impact on the heritage assets, including the use of historic features, namely the wall, and that it's sustainable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I have a proposer for the new vote then for approval?
I'll propose that.
Thanks.
And I'll second it. I'll second it.
Thanks, Councillor Loynes. So
thank you.
Proposed by Councillor, sorry?
Conditions delegated to...
And conditions delegated to planning officers and the chair. Yeah. We just should have that as a given now. I think we'll just make sure that's there. Okay, so we'll go to, so that's been proposed by Councillor Lindridge, seconded by Councillor Loynes, and we'll go to the new vote. Approval, for, against, abstain.
Thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Akers-Belcher.
For.
Councillor Brewer.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Buchan.
For.
Councillor Fleming.
For.
Councillor James.
Against, and can that be recorded, please?
Councillor Lindridge.
For.
Councillor Loynes.
For.
Councillor Carl Richardson.
For.
Councillor Stokel.
For.
Councillor Young.
For. That application has been approved. We move on to item number 6, which is item 4 on the main agenda, and I'll hand back over to Ryan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. The item is again set out in pages 20 to 36 of the PowerPoint and handouts and relates to the same area of land as the previous item, within the curtilage of Meadowcroft in the north of the estate. Listed building consent is sought for the same development as described in the previous item, comprising demolition of existing stables, part demolition of an amendment to an existing garage block, creation of a new access and erection of a detached bungalow, including retention, excuse me, and incorporation of an existing wall with associated hard and soft landscaping and works to existing boundary treatments.
Are you okay, Ryan?
Yeah, sorry, program.
You want to get a glass of water or something?
Thanks. The proposal is set out in full within the committee report. The relevant planning history and full site context is set out within the committee report. The application has been referred to the planning committee at the request of a local ward councillor in line with the council's scheme of delegation. The application has been advertised by neighbour letters, a site notice and a press note. To date, there have been no representations received. Responses from technical consultees are detailed within the committee report. These include objections from the council's Heritage and Countryside Manager and Planning Policy section and Hartlepool Civic Society. The application site is within the setting of Meadowcroft and Meadowside, a Grade 2 listed building. The main consideration is the impact on the character and setting of the listed building. As per the recommendation for the previous item, for the reasons set out in the committee report and in view of the objections from relevant consultees, it is considered that the proposals would harm the significance of the listed building at Meadowcroft and Meadowside. No evidence of any public benefit to outweigh this harm has been provided. In summary, the proposal is contrary to the identified local plan policies and those of the MPPF. The proposal is recommended for refusal for the reasons detailed in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for the officer? No. The applicant is still with us. I'm not sure whether he wants to add any further comments.
No, thank you.
No. No objector. General debate. No general debate. Okay, the recommendation. Oh, Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. There is a slight delay, isn't there?
There
between,
is, yeah. It's probably
clicking
about 3
and
or 4
coming up.
seconds.
I just wanted to ask, well, I want to put into the debate really the situation that we're actually finding ourselves in here, because I'm having some difficulty because of the accumulative effect of the planning applications all on one site. And to be fair, what's actually happening at the moment, taking one at a time, means the cumulative effect is lost. And yet when we actually do applications for Wynyard, officers want us to look at it in the accumulative. So I just find it quite contrary that we're doing this piecemeal, because each planning application on its own looks to be okay, but I actually think that the impact of the accumulative development of this site is detrimental.
Jim? Ferguson?
Yeah, Marjorie, that was officers' view as well, and that is covered in the report, but members presumably, well, members have obviously taken a different view, so it is covered in the report, and members are taking a different view is all I could say, really.
Thank you. Any further general debate? No. Okay, the officer's recommendation for this application is refusal, so it's 4 against, abstention, refusal, and we'll go to the vote.
Thank you very much. Councillor Akers-Belcher.
Against.
Councillor Brewer. Councillor Brewer.
Muted again. Against.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Buchan.
Against.
Councillor Fleming.
Against.
Councillor James.
For and recorded, please.
Thank you. Councillor Lindridge.
Against.
Councillor Loynes.
Against.
Councillor Carl Richardson.
Against.
Councillor Stokel.
Against.
Councillor Young.
Against. I think it's the same reasons as before, Jim, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll record the same reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll seek a proposer and a seconder for the new vote for approval.
Sure.
Councillor Lindridge has put his hand up, so I'll take that as a proposal, and Councillor Lawrence has put a hand up as well as a seconder.
I'll second it. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. We'll go to the vote then. This is for approval. 4 against, abstain.
Councillor Akers-Belcher.
4.
Councillor Brewer.
4.
Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Buchan.
4.
Councillor Fleming.
4.
Councillor James.
Against and recorded, please.
Councillor Lindridge.
4.
Councillor Loynes.
4.
Councillor Carl Richardson.
4.
Councillor Stokel.
4.
Councillor Young.
That's 4, and that application has been approved.
Mike, conditions delegated again.
Conditions delegated to officers and to myself. Okay, thank you. Or Tim in my absence.
Right.
Okay, the next item is item 739 Moorhen Road. I believe it's Ryan again for this one.
It's Steph, thank you, Chair. It's 39 Moorhen Road, not 37.
Apologies.
The item starts at page 56 of the PowerPoint.
We haven't got the topic just yet.
Just wait a moment for the PowerPoint to be on the screen. The site relates to 39 Moorhen Road. Planning permission is sought for the incorporation of a parcel of land into the rear garden of 39 Moorhen Road. This includes the retrospective clearing of planting and the installation of boundary fences around the parcel of land. The proposal is set out in full within the committee report. The layout of the site in relation to neighbouring properties is shown on this plan 1 on page 57 of the PowerPoint. Next slide, please. Plan 2 shows the layout of the installed fencing in relation to the host property. The applicant has annotated this plan to indicate the installed fencing, which is around the red edge. A thin strip of landscaping remains at the bottom of the plan, just shown by those annotations there. Although not shown, sorry, previous plan, please. Although not shown on this plan and not included in the planning application, an additional parcel of land has been enclosed by fencing adjacent to this area to the right. It's just been indicated now. To the south of number 37 Moorhen Road, which is subject to a separate planning enforcement investigation. Moving on to the photographs, they're shown of the site and surroundings, pages 59 to 64 of the PowerPoint. Photo 1 here on the screen is a view of the rear garden. We can see the fence that you can see to the top of the photo has been installed, where the other fence remains as per the existing layout. The area within has been cleared. The second photo again shows this parcel of land just from the other, looking from the other direction of the garden. The fence towards the top has been recently installed, while the fence on the right side was part of the original layout. Photo 3 is a photo showing the cleared and fenced areas adjacent to both numbers 39 and 37. 37 is just at the top of the plan there. Photo 4 shows a more recent photo showing this area of land. Photo 5 is taken from Throston Grange Lane, which is to the south of the site. You can just see 39 Moorhen Road there beyond that landscaping, with the parcel of land in question in between the landscaping and that property. And finally, photo 6 is a Google image showing the former landscaping in place at the site. The application has been brought before the Planning Committee as the works are retrospective in line with the Council's scheme of delegation. The relevant planning history is set out within the committee report. Enforcement action was authorised by members in the Planning Committee on 4th of September 2019. The breach has since been referred to the courts. In the interim period, a planning application has been received. The court case has been...
You're on Chaucer. You're on Chaucer.
The application, sorry about that, I've been describing the wrong proposal there. There's no history.
We've lost the PowerPoint completely.
Yeah, I think the PowerPoint's just been taken off.
Oh,
the relevant planning history is set out within the committee report. There is no history for this property, sorry about that. The application has been advertised in the usual way. To date, there have been no objections from members of the public. One letter of support has been received from the property adjacent to the east. Responses from technical consultees are detailed in full within the committee report. These include objections from the Council's planning policy section, the Council's landscape architect and the Council's ecologist that the area of land to be incorporated into the curtilage of private gardens is to the detriment of the visual amenity, function and loss of ecological habitat of the surrounding area. The main planning considerations are identified within the report. The area of landscaping is considered to be a green link to the Middle Warren Green Wedge and as such is protected by policy NE6 of the local plan. Although the area adjacent to number 37 does not form part of this application, the cumulative impacts that result from two adjacent parcels of land being incorporated into private garden amenity space is taken into account. Therefore, with respect to the principle of development, the impact on the visual amenity of the area, and the impact on the ecological network, the proposal is not considered to be acceptable for the reasons set out in the report. It is therefore recommended that the application be refused. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steph. Councillor Loyne, do you want to ask the first question of the officer?
Yes, please. Thanks, Chair. Steph, can you just clarify the land that they've, fenced off? Does that belong to the developer or HBC? If it's HBC, has there any monetary been taken? Have we sold the land to them, or is it the developer that owns the land? And to me, it looks like it was derelict anyway. So, okay, if you could just answer that for me.
Thank you, Councillor Lyons. The land, I believe, belongs to Liebel Developments, which is the original developer. It's understood that it would be adopted, but it hasn't been adopted as yet.
Is that adopted by the local authority and we haven't adopted it yet?
Yeah. As far as I understand, there's been no monetary contributions or no actual sale of the land so far.
So the land's still owned by the developer?
Yes, that's right.
Dan?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just to clarify that the land forms, it's a planting strip, which is part of the original intended design for the layout of the estate that was approved back in 1997, which consists of sort of shrub planting. From an officer's perspective, it's certainly not considered to be derelict.
Thanks, Dan. Councillor Akers-Belcher.
Thank you. I wanted to ask, in the planning history in the original, based on the fact that was going to be adopted or may be adopted in the future, any decisions we make today around that, what implication will that have on any previous decision made? Or has there been any previous decision made around that? And in the future, should we adopt that site, would it then become a civil matter around any decisions which were made today? Thank you.
Jim Ferguson? You're on mute, Jim.
You're on mute, Jim.
Sorry, as we understand it, the land isn't owned by the applicant. So we have two issues. You have land ownership, and also we also have an issue of planning permission. As you're all aware, you can apply for planning permission on land you don't own, provided you notify the owner. So we would be making a decision in terms of planning. Now, there would still be the issue of the householder coming to terms with the owner, and thereafter, in terms of adoption, it would be a matter for the council to come to terms with whoever was the owner as to whether or not that land should be adopted by the council. So there are two issues. You're correct, Stephen. Thank you.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, Jim said some of what I was going to say, because the example I've given a number of times about land ownership is I could put a planning application in to build condominiums on the front of Buckingham Palace. The fact that I would never be able to build it doesn't prevent me from getting the planning application. But the fact is that the original planning application, which was approved by the local authority, by us on the planning committee, has been breached by this actual extension of people's gardens without permission and without any recourse, really. And I actually find that completely out of order. That strip was put in purposefully to protect wildlife, to give habitat, and to make a green area as part of a build. And it can't just be taken away like that, in my view.
Councillor Lindridge.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I think some of my queries that I was going to raise have been answered. I just looked back and thought that when the original plans they were implemented, it was for the visual amenity and part of the greenery to remain. So I'm presuming if that was a planting strip and then it's removed, just for clarity, are we assuming that the builder owns the land and the applicant is extended into that? So there might be some monetary sort of exchange between the owner and the builder. I'm presuming.
I don't think it's our consideration, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm trying to make is we then lose in that situation.
As we understand it, the ownership is still with the developer.
Right. That's fair enough. That's for clarity. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Lindridge. Okay, is the applicant on the call with us now?
Yes. Yes, hello?
Hi there, I can hear you. Yep, that's fine. I can hear you now. You've got 4 minutes with which to put your case forward. You've got 4 minutes, so you can start now.
Yeah, basically what I'd like to say, the main issue hasn't really been brought up here. There's been an issue with trees planted there 20 years ago, and the trees have obviously grown over 20 years, causing lack of sunlight into my garden. So basically, I'd like to say thank you for letting me speak. My name's Paul Bartley. I own the property. Obviously, my family's directly affected by these trees, blocking sunlight into my garden. And with respect to all council officers objecting, it's quite a stressful situation. Obviously, I've got a south-facing garden. I like sun in my garden. I like the sun in my garden. I've got a greenhouse. I grow vegetables. My dilemma is Lee Bell, who were on the land registry, buried their head in the sand. The council, who Lee Bell said council's adopted the land, say they haven't adopted the land. So basically, there's this patch of land that's not getting maintained, and no one's shown any interest in it. So with respect to the landscape architect and the ecologist, they've never visited the site, so they don't understand the situation I'm in. So basically, over the last 15 years, I've been going in, chopping trees down, and a couple of years later, chopping more trees down. It's getting to a situation where there's just trees and trees lying about all over the place. So basically, that's the main issue. If the council would maintain the land, and by the way, there is no shrubs in there. There is shrubs on the outside of the land. That's all fenced off. There's no access. But within there is just large trees, and it's just a stressful situation. So I just want to propose to put a gate into my fence to allow me to go in and maintain the trees. Simple stuff. No one's objected. And the council won't maintain the land. Lee Bell won't maintain the land. What am I supposed to do? I've been doing it for 15 years. I just want to be allowed to continue to do what I'm doing. And that's it. That's all I've got to say.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Any questions for the applicant? There's no objector on the call as far as I'm aware. No. Okay, we shall move on to general debate. Councillor Lindridge.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it is difficult and frustrating for the applicant, right? But we can only consider the material plan objections on that. Could I ask, I don't know whether it's a question generally or for the officer, if we were to adopt the land, right, would we maintain the height of the trees at a particular level so that you could get a balance between having residents visual amenity and improved sunlight, etc., while still having the ecology side of it? You know, it's nice to have insects and bushes and things, what have you. What would be the situation if that was maintained? Is there a particular height where you could come to some compromise? Because it is difficult. Yeah.
Keaton?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, there's if and when we do take over the ownership of this land, they'll form part of our maintenance program. So they'll be maintained to a height. There's not a set height that we work to. We work on complaints that we receive. So they'll just be added to our annual maintenance list.
So I'm presuming, sorry, Chair, I'm presuming then you'd compromise with individuals that the height of the trees may or may not be sort of affected.
Yeah, if and when that land comes over to us and those trees become our assets, we'd have those conversations. If we were receiving complaints, we'd pick that up with individual homeowners.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Keir.
Thank you, Councillor James.
Well, can I just say I think this is absolutely amazing, because I'm really glad that this resident doesn't live backing onto Sherwood Forest, because you know, not only is he clearing the land, he's fencing the land off as he goes. So ultimately, he's going to end up on the road edge. I mean, it's appalling. That green strip has been put in purposefully, and the resident does not have the right to hack it down over 15 years, bit by bit, and then actually enclose the land so that it can't actually regrow. That is not the intention of the land that was put in the planning application. The land in the application was for a green strip with trees and shrubbery so that it is a living environment for animals and birds. That's what it was in for. And to be fair, that the situation for that has not changed.
Councillor Fleming.
You're on mute.
Yeah, it's just a legal thing, really. It's the fence getting put round. If it's left there for a certain time, does the land go to the bloke who's living next to it?
Tom?
Yeah, I think that's the point about squatters' rights, but it's not relevant to the material planning considerations.
Thank you. Any further general debate? No, the application before us is recommended by officers for a refusal or against abstention refusal, and we'll go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Akers-Belcher.
For.
Councillor Brewer.
Councillor Brewer.
Abstain.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Buchan.
For.
Councillor Fleming.
For.
Councillor James.
Councillor James.
Sorry, Chair. For.
Councillor Lindridge.
For.
Councillor Loynes.
Against, and could I have mine recorded, please?
Yes. Councillor Richardson. Carl Richardson.
For.
Councillor Stokel.
For.
Councillor Young.
For. That application has been refused. Next item is item 8, 32 Chaucer Avenue, and I think it's Steph taking this one.
Paul Bartley.
Are you there,
Is
Steph?
now exiting.
Steph?
Thank you, Chair. The item starts at page 66 of the PowerPoint. The site relates to 32 Chaucer Avenue. Planning permission is sought retrospectively for the erection of a single-storey lean-to extension to the side of 32 Chaucer Avenue. The proposal is set out in full within the committee report. The layout of the site in relation to neighbouring properties is shown on Plan 1 on page 67 of the PowerPoint. You can just see that edged in red there. Plan 2 shows the elevations and floor plan of the single-storey lean-to extension. We have the front elevation, side elevation and floor plan here. Plan 3 shows a photo elevation of the side of the extension. It's annotated here with 3 metres from that offshoot extension to the rear. Plan 4 shows the front elevation of the extension. Again, this is annotated with the 2 metre measurement. Moving on to the photos of the site, we have photo 1 is a view from the front just within number 34. Again, photo 2 is a photo taken from number 34. Photo 3 is taken from the other direction, looking towards number 34. You can just see the extension there. Photo 4 is a view of the front looking from the highway. Photo 5 is a close-up view of the extension just to the right there. And finally, photo 6 is a Google image showing the former situation at the host property. The application has been called in to be determined in the planning committee by a local ward councillor in line with the council's scheme of delegation. The relevant planning history is set out within the committee report. Enforcement action was authorised by members at the planning committee on the 4th of September 2019 in respect of this breach of planning control. The matter was then referred to be dealt with in the courts. Due to COVID, the court case was adjourned, and in the interim period, a planning application was received. The court case has been adjourned pending the outcome of today's planning committee. The application has been advertised in the usual way. The period of publicity expired on the 24th of November. To update members, since the publication of the committee report and to date, there has been one objection from a neighbouring resident and one letter of support received. Responses from technical consultees are detailed in full within the committee report. Responses include objections from the Council's building control section that the lean-to extension contravenes building regulations criteria in respect of its structure, fire safety and ventilation. To update members, since the publication of the report, the Council's landscape architect has confirmed no objections to the proposal. The main planning considerations are identified within the report. It is considered that the use of materials, design and siting of the extension results in a detrimental visual impact on the host dwelling and wider street scene. Usually the safety and stability of a structure would not be considered under the remit of planning control. However, for the reasons detailed in the committee report, the Council cannot take action under the building regulations regime, and therefore the structure of the extension remains a material planning consideration in this specific instance. The extension is therefore considered not to be of a safe and secure form of development and to be contrary to policy QP5 of the local plan, as well as the relevant paragraphs of the NPPF. Therefore, with respect to these matters, the proposal is not considered to be acceptable for the reasons set out in the report, and it is recommended that the application be refused. Thank you, Chair.
Questions from councillors to the officer. Councillor Akers-Belcher.
Thank you. I'd first of all like to ask what the issues are with safety and why they can't be dealt with through building control.
Can I interject there, Chairman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the building control point is that they have a 12-month time limit on taking proceedings, and that comes from the starts when the relevant construction is finished. We're outside the 12-month period, and I understand, albeit that this is hearsay, as it were, that the reason that building control didn't take any measures under their regime was because they understood that the matter was being looked at retrospectively through the planning system. So I say that's my understanding of how we are where we are today. But I certainly understand the position to be that the 12-month time period has now run out, which means the usual rules about the duplication of other regimes won't apply because the other regime doesn't apply anymore because of that time limit. So if that doesn't make sense, I'm quite happy to clarify further for members.
No, I think it does make sense, but if there is a safety issue on that, why? My concern is how. I really need an understanding of what this safety issue is, because clearly if it's felt as a safety issue, then the prime focus should have been on building control to deal with this from a safety point of view and not leave it to go on for 12 months. So I need to know more about the safety aspect of this from the officer's point of view.
Yeah, again, I'm interjecting, and it's perhaps the other officers to put me right if I've got it wrong, but I understand that we're two separate issues. The first is the stability of the structure, because apparently it hasn't been put together in the most robust fashion. That's always a material planning consideration anyway. There's plenty of guidance on that. The difficult one is fire safety, because the building control is saying, well, there are concerns about whether this building is safe. I understand that the applicant's actually storing motorbikes and things in there. Now, as members will know, if you have an integral garage with your house, it has to be built to certain standards to contain a fire. So I think that's the big one in terms of building regulations. So for obvious reasons, that is a matter of great sensitivity nowadays. This thing about fire risk and building regulations.
So the issue is we know what is in that building by what's just been said, or or what's proposed to be kept in this building. So if it wasn't for the nature intended, then would this be an issue? And the next question I would have is, could a garden shed be put next to this without planning permission, which would store such items or not?
Just if I can come in there, sorry, they couldn't put a garden shed there because it would be in front of the principal elevation of the property, so that would require planning permission in itself. It's more to do, I think, more to do with the nature of the materials and the fact that there's no fire separation between the between it and the property. So it could, if it catches light, it's straight onto the existing extension on the building.
Kieran?
I think as well, I think it blocks an egress escape as well. I think if you can pull the photos back up, Dan, with the showing the front elevation. I think if you go back to that last photo, Dan. I think there's a door behind that. If we got a photo of that, Dan, before development, or there, so that you've got the original door there, and then this has been built directly in front of, and then if you skip forward to the elevation of what's been constructed, Dan. One more, I think. The one with the 2 meter dimension on. If you take me back to that. There. There, you can see the bolts that are on the outside there to protect what's the contents of that shed, but there's no way of opening that from the inside.
That is something what is typical of that estate in that area. There's a lot across that estate. And I just don't mean that street, but I mean across that estate, there's a lot of situations like that. And across Hartlepool as well, if people who walk around will see that that is not an unusual system or something what people have put in place across Hartlepool. And I'm not saying that's right, but again, from a fairness point of view, it just seems there's obviously a reason why this has been brought forward, but there's a lot of structures like this across Hartlepool. And I'm not looking for a response, I suppose, on that after I've said it.
Right, thank you. Doesn't appear to be any more questions. Is the applicant on the call?
Yes, I am on the call. Yes, I think I've just unmuted.
Fantastic. Yeah, you've got 4 minutes to put your point across.
Right. First of all, I'd like to point out that I've still got 3 fire exits from the house. In the back of my living room, there used to be a window when the house was originally built. There's now French window doors. So there's an escape there. There's an escape to the back of the house, and there's also an escape from the kitchen. Even if the door in question was locked and I couldn't find the keys, I wouldn't be able to use it, but I've still got alternative exits.
It's built by a licensed contractor.
Right, it was also built by a licensed contractor. It is extremely stable. I've been on the roof myself when I was putting the roofing felt on the roof. You could come round, I could jump on top of it without any problems at all. I'd like to thank the Planning Committee for this opportunity to speak. Under the permitted development rights, I thought I was exempt from the building regulations, but maybe I'm not. I see that the only person to object to my lean-to is my neighbour at 34 Chaucer Avenue. From her notes on the letter that was sent in, it seems that her primary complaint is that my window overlooks her property. Both of our houses, as well as other houses constructed in Chaucer Avenue, Browning Avenue and Catcoat Road, were constructed with one house of an adjoining pair with a window at the front spanning both front gardens. When the contractor took out the window that spanned both our properties to replace it with a smaller one, the resident from 34 complained to him about it. On the following day, the resident from 34 went to see David Oliver at 43 Browning Avenue to complain to him that I had refused to open my front door to her and that she knew I was in my house at the time. I was not in, and David Oliver can vouch that this is true. Later that day, I knocked on the front door of 34 Chaucer Avenue so I could answer any concerns my neighbour had about the window being altered. She would only talk to me from an upstairs front window. She complained that the window I had replaced was overlooking her front yard. I tried to explain that it had previously overlooked her front garden from when the houses were originally built. She commented that if she was to build a room at the side of her house, that my window would look into her room. That's the same result as if the window hadn't been replaced at all. I tried to arrange a time when we could speak face to face, but she refused. I am not sure if the window is even a consideration since it is not part of a lean-to. Her second comment refers to building materials. Because she refused to communicate with me, I was unable to learn what building materials would be more acceptable to her. A letter on file from Guy Rawlinson, assumably from Hartlepool Borough Council, states that there is no visual objection. If you've got any questions, I will do my best to answer them, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Doesn't look like it. Do we have an objector on the call? Do we have an objector on the call? No.
I believe we do, Chair.
Well, I can't hear them.
Mrs. Baines.
When I can't hear anything.
Mike's not working.
There you go.
Hello.
Use this.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Just about.
Hello.
Hello there. You've got
Sorry about that.
you've got 4 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah. I adjoined the property to Mr. Southgate's property, and he actually started that before he even he came in. He asked me, did I have any objections to putting some kind of structure up? And I said, oh no. I said, as long as it doesn't interfere with my side of the property. But on saying that, the fence that's up there now, I put up to try and hide what he has put on his side, and you didn't come and see me and talk to me. He came at 9:20. Well, actually, no, it was more 20 to 10 at night to speak to me. My husband at the time was working away. I would not have come down the stairs to speak to you anyway about it. But I think it's wrong that you've left a window. The same situation is on the back of my property. And if you wanted to bring the plans up from when we done it, my window was half in his rear garden and half in my garden. I moved my window. I didn't leave it looking in the property of Mr. Southgate. It's solely in my back garden, looking out onto my back garden. It's not my problem Mr. Southgate has put a shed up, really. That's what it is, a shed. It's not I didn't want to fall out, and I don't want to fall out with Mr. Southgate, but I just think it's not right. And it does encroach on my privacy. I've lived here since 1986. I've brought my children up here. It's my home. It'll probably always be my home. And that's all I've got to say. I don't want to fall out with them. I really don't. I mean, I don't really know them that well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the objector? No hands have gone up.
Chair, I think Mr. Southgate is indicating, but I'm not sure that he can actually ask a question.
He can't, no, sadly not. So we are, there are no...
Chair, Apologies, Chair. I believe we also have another gentleman who was wishing to speak on this application.
No idea.
Daniel Oliver.
Well, there's only 4 minutes allocated to applicants. So I haven't been instructed that there was 2.
Well, how long did Linda Baines have, Chair?
2 minutes 18 seconds, I recall.
Well, then there's still 1 minute 72 left.
So is this an objector, or is this a?
I believe this is someone speaking in support of the application, Chair.
I have no idea what the timing was. I've reset the clock since then.
Well, the time available is for an objector.
Yeah, it's not available for an applicant. I have no idea. I've not been sent that information, I don't think.
Okay.
I'm just trying to remember I'm trying to recall what I mean, we moved onto the objector in the agenda, and nobody instructed that we were doing that without seeing the other applicant. So I'm not sure what I'm meant to do.
I think the first question is whether is it Miss Southgate?
No, it's a Mr. Oliver, I believe. I've just been told.
Yes. Mr. Oliver, has he been registered as a speaker at all?
Was he registered as a speaker?
Yes, he was. Yes, I'm being told he was. Yes.
Well, he's entitled to speak, but I think the problem we have is the timing issue.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I'm personally speaking, I've got no issue hearing him speak, apart from the fact that at some point somebody should have stopped me in the agenda, really, to say that there was another person speaking on behalf of the applicant. Councillor Akers Belcher, I'd love your input. You're on mute.
I don't know if you will or not, but I just want to ask a question of the objector, if I can, please, Chair.
Yeah.
Mrs. Bain, yeah. Mrs. Bain, I just wanted to ask, you mentioned about the window, and that seems to be like part of the problem for you, but I just wanted to ask about the whole structure, really, whether what you were wanting is some movement on the window and an adjustment, or have you got an objection to all the structure, really? I was just trying to establish that, please.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not. I don't like what he's built it out of, because if I hadn't put the fence up, all I would have seen was the roof of a shed, which that's what it looked like, the roof of a shed. The objection mainly I do have is that window. I mean, my bin is directly under that, and the ground floor plan of it is mine. The outside property is mine. You get what I mean? His window is his only is inside. Yes, I know it used to encroach across a boundary fence, but the fence was lower and the window spanned across the top of the fence. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
But when you're leaving a window solely on someone else's property, looking solely, that's the main door I use. I don't use my front door. I never have done from moving in. We walk up and down. I have my grandbairn coming in and out today. He comes in most weekends. He sleeps most weekends, but not obviously with the COVID. But I just don't like that idea that it's. Plus, it would stop me building anything there, wouldn't it? If he leaves that window there, I couldn't put a porch in. I couldn't put planning permission in.
Okay, Dan, James.
Yes, Chair. I think just to provide some clarity for members about this window in question, the application only relates to the structure, but if I just show on the screen, it's this photo here, so that serves Mr. Southgate's property, and what they've been discussing is that this single-story link extension is in effect 2 inverted L shapes, so the lady's property on the left-hand side has the rear elevation, and Mr. Southgate, he has this section here. But if I just move on to the, very quickly, just move on to the next slide to show you what it looked like before. There was, as you can see, there was a double window, and what Mr. Southgate's done, obviously, as part of his proposal here, he's installed a new window, which is unlikely to require planning permission or be development in its own right, so that's not part of the consideration of the application before us today, that window.
As I say, to an extent that it's unlikely to require planning permission to go from the double window down to that. But that's what I understand the lady's concerns are in respect of this window says Mr. Southgate's property, and obviously these are the windows serving her property.
Okay, thank you. Tom, can I just pick your brains on whether I can go back to the supporter of the applicant?
Yes, I think I must apologise to Mr. Southgate for getting in a tangle over his name, but I think the gentleman, Mr. Oliver, has registered to speak. Therefore, it's only proper that he should be allowed to speak. I think the only issue was in relation to timing.
Well, I think we can probably go with the fact that it was over 2 minutes, but I obviously can't recall by how much.
Yeah, I think
so. If everybody's in agreement, I'm willing to allow 2 minutes unless there's any objection. Councillor Akers-Belcher. You're on mute, Councillor Akers-Belcher.
There has been leniency given from the chair before where they feel that there may be benefit added, but I think out of courtesy we should be asking Mrs. Bain whether she has got any objections to this, and I think if she hasn't, then we should let Mr. Oliver speak, but or we should give Mrs. Bain the opportunity to have further time, and I think as long as there's balance and fairness in the process, then I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, Mrs. Baines, are you happy for us to listen to Mr. Oliver if you can come back at the end of that?
Well, really, I don't see what it has to do with Mr. Oliver, because he doesn't live next door. It's between the planning permission and us, really. I think he's a neighbour from round the corner. It's his friend.
I think the thing is that we won't know until we hear from Mr. Oliver.
Right, well, let him go ahead, but yeah, I don't.
My respectful suggestion would be to go with what Councillor Akers-Belcher has suggested, which is that Mr. Oliver has given his 2 minutes, but then Mrs. Baines is allowed to come back and make any comments she wishes to make on Mr. Oliver.
Good. Okay. Okay, Mr. Oliver, you've got 2 minutes to give your point of view. You're on mute at the moment.
Good afternoon, everyone. As you said, my name is Daniel Oliver. Originally, when Mr. Southgate erected the extension and the neighbor complained, a representative from the council came out and told him if he put bricklayer on it, there wouldn't be a problem. And suddenly, it's escalated now from not only bricklayer, but it escalated that they had to go to planning. Mr. Southgate, I know this is a fact because we worked together on this to try to resolve the concern at the time. He being on the internet and he tried very hard to find out where he can purchase this bricklayer. If I'm right in saying he approached someone in the council, the building department, and asked him where he can purchase the bricklayer to put on. So he tried to cooperate all along with what they said he should do. Now, I suggested to him if he's struggling to find bricklayer, ask the council if they would accept UPVC. And in listening to his neighbor's concern, she said that the side of it looked like a shed.
It does.
And if the bricklayer or the UPVC was placed, it would really improve the looks of it. Now, the window concern is the way, as it was said earlier, I don't want to be repetitious, it's the way in which the buildings were built at the time. Mr. Southgate reduced the size of the window to incorporate what he wanted to do. Now, it also has a safety aspect, the door at the front, okay? He has locks on the door which can be changed, and I'm sure... Okay,
30 seconds.
Mr. Southgate would be happy to change the locks if he had to incorporate the whatever the council wanted, but my main concern with Mr. Southgate is why suddenly it's gone from put bricklayer on and everything would be fine to it's gone to where it is at the moment.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, Mrs. Baines, you've got an opportunity to come back.
I don't think they're going to.
Yeah, that would be fine. I've got no objections to him covering the side of the shed. None whatsoever. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
Sorry
Okay.
about that. It's just hard to do this. I'm not very computer
No,
minded.
it's fine. I appreciate that.
It's just you've got to take it from my point of view as well. He wouldn't have nobody would like it if somebody would just put something up and just bugger me neighbour. That's what it's basically said. That's what it feels like. I'm not saying he is. That's what it feels like it's happened. I did say to the builder that put the window in, could you stop putting her in? Because I think I need. And he got on the phone and he spoke to Mr. Southgate, and Mr. Southgate told him just put it in. Okay. And that's what his builder told me.
Okay.
Go ahead with what I've told you to do.
Okay. Are there any further questions for the applicant or the objector concerning Councillor Akers-Belcher?
Thank you, Chair. You said to the applicant or the objector.
That's where we're so far.
Yeah, that's right. I think from my point of view, I think that there is room for compromise on here. If the applicant is willing to tidy it up and make sure that it's a safe structure, I think anybody who has been elected can't ignore safety concerns. And I think if the applicant was to give an indication that he would ensure that it was a safe structure and that there was conditions in place to make it safe, then I'm sure I would be happy to support. But we've also got to reach Mrs. Bain's concerns as well about it being tidied up. So I think it's simple. If Mr. Southgate today can say that he's willing to tidy it up and that he is agreeable to take steps to make it safe, then I would be willing to support that. And I think it's a compromise, but I can't compromise making a decision where the safety aspects and that, if there was a fire, both Mr. Southgate and Mrs. Baines would be at risk. So I would need that assurance from the applicant, really.
Okay.
Would there be any objection to me actually covering that window over from my?
I think that's a separate matter completely. I'm afraid, and it's not part of this particular application in that respect. So
yeah, right.
I can't deal with that now, I'm afraid.
Well, I could put planning permission in to do that.
One of the conditions, Chair, could be that the window is opaque. And again, I know we've got to deal with the safety issue here, but it could be that window is covered up, or that there's agreeable methods to be taken to do that, so that everybody's happy. But we can't ignore that safety aspect.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do acknowledge what Stephen's saying, that there does seem to be some mutual agreement here on one aspect of it, and that is with tidying up the exterior of the shed. I do still also worry about the safety element, and we discussed that the safety element wasn't just the fire exit route, but also the potential petrol bombs being stored in the garage. Motorbikes full of petrol in close proximity to a neighbour's property. Can we have some direction from Tom on what would happen with that? Thank you, Chair.
Tom?
Well, I'm biased in favour of motorbikes, Mr. Chairman, because I've got 4 of them. But I think I mentioned the matter of motorbikes, and I don't recall Mr. Southgate coming back and saying that he wasn't storing them there. But I think it's also the general point is, and this was discussed in connection with the Meadowcroft applications, which is the one tends to store in sheds flammable materials anyway. So I don't think it's necessarily specific to motorbikes. So, but this is me doing my engineering thing rather than my lawyer thing. But if I could digress slightly, Councillor Akers-Belcher has mentioned the matter of conditions. Now, personally, and that's subject to what Jim Ferguson might have to say, but personally, I don't see a problem with planning conditions which provide for necessary fire precautions in the building. I think that is something that could be conditioned, and those works could be inspected by the building regulation people to ensure that they are to an appropriate standard. And obviously the business about external appearance, well, we do that all the time by condition. So I wouldn't see that as a problem.
Jim?
Sorry, can I come back to that, Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to say, as long as them two conditions are met, which one is safety and one is that both neighbours seem to be working together on this with a happy medium right now, I'd be more than happy to support that solution. Thank you, Chair.
Jim?
Yeah, I appreciate members are looking to find a compromise and a solution, but my concern is we're opening up a Pandora's box in respect to the building regulations. You can see in the report, Gary gave the applicant 3 options to resolve the situation, and these involved taking it down, let me just get to the relevant point. Remove the extension.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Jim. Have you got the paragraph number?
Yeah, well, it's in his comments. Remove the extension, detach the building from the dwelling by at least 50 millimetres to all sides, and submit a building regs application and rebuild the extension to comply with the building regs. I think we're kind of in danger of trying to design a proposal that isn't probably feasible. The other thing about putting slips on it, and I'm not sure that the structure would be able to take the weight of the slips, and how sustainable would that be? How long would they last? Would we end up with it, becoming a bit of a problem in itself? So I think we're probably overcomplicating things.
Okay. Right. Thank you. We're obviously now in very, very firmly into general debate without it being identified. So I'll go back to Councillor Akers-Belcher. We're on mute, Councillor Akers-Belcher.
I know, I've just realised that. And, anyway, it's disappointing that if a solution can be found today, but I think one of the things I would say is we do have to act within the law, and I think there is a merit to explore this and say that we delegate the conditions to the chair and the officer to deal with, to look at a safer method and to tidy this up. That would mean I would have to vote against the officer's recommendations, and then for the recommendation to to come forward again, so it can be dealt with today. And I think if for some reason there was real genuine safety issues, then that would be explored. Now, when Jim had mentioned about would the structure be able to take it, have we got? I'm not too sure if we have any firm findings on that, because he said he wasn't sure. So if we delegated this to the officers, they could deal with it, and that could be assessed. If it wasn't found to be fit, then it would have to come back, or it would have to be dealt with. But I would hope that we can deal with it in the way that I've proposed, which I've outlined. Thank you.
Just to come back, I did briefly discuss the issue of attaching slips to the building, and that was the view. My recollection is that was the view of the building inspector, that it probably wasn't feasible. But I think if members want us to explore, I mean, bearing in mind this has been going on for quite a while, and we've got to where we've got. But if members do want us to explore whether that structure can be amended to make it acceptable visually and in terms of fire safety, then we can look at it.
I'm going to recommend, if possible, that we probably defer this application to do those exploratory works, if that's okay. If anybody has an objection.
Second, Chair.
Councillor Akers-Belcher, I'm going to let you come in because your hand was up, so you're on mute.
I'm back off mute. I was going to say that, you know, there was a little bit uncertainty around that. So I would welcome, you know, a delay, because the point is we need to get this right for everybody, for both neighbours. So at the end of the day, I think the sensible thing is to defer it, to get this.
We'll go to that vote then. So I proposed it. Councillor James has seconded it. Can we go to the roll call for defer, please? The defer, sorry.
Absolutely, Chair. Councillor Akers-Belcher.
For.
Councillor Brewer.
For defer.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Buchan.
For.
Councillor Fleming.
For.
Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Lindridge.
For.
Councillor Lyons.
For.
I believe Councillor Richardson has left the meeting.
Yeah.
Councillor Stokel.
For.
And Councillor Young.
For. That item has been deferred. Okay, next item is item 5.1. It's current complaints. Unless anybody has any burning desires, we'll let you talk to officers separately. We do need to go into closed session. Can I have a proposal for closed session?
Seconded.
Thank you.
I'll propose it then.
Okay. Councillor Lyons has proposed. Seconder?
Seconded. I'll second.
Okay, Councillor Brewer has seconded it. We'll go into closed session. Can we cancel the stream, please?
Yep, I'm just doing that now, Chair.